Test 1, 2, 3. I think we have audio. What's going on, everyone? Welcome. How am I getting the echo? Get that fixed, the echo. Oh, geez. I am multi-platform streaming today. I usually multi-platform stream. Welcome everybody to the Thursday afternoon Twitch and YouTube stream. For those of you on YouTube, welcome YouTube. For those on Twitch, welcome you Twitch. Unfortunately, the setup I have requires YouTube chat to be on a separate screen, and so I have to always be logged into YouTube and check it out, make sure that nobody's asking questions over there, which happened last time, and I apologize, YouTube viewers. I did not see your questions. I will eagerly be watching both chats right now. I've got to figure out a better setup for this for multi-stream, but we're back and we're doing Swift today. So a kind of reminder that my lunch streams, which happen from 12 until 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, are .NET streams. They have nothing to do with my work. They're my personal lunch streams. I'm going to be doing some crazy stuff with .NET. A couple days ago, we did some Apple TV stuff with .NET, which is kind of crazy that you could do that. And tomorrow, we're going to be building a Mac application on stream and with C# and .NET. It's going to be cool. But today, we're working on some Couchbase Lite query stuff within Swift, building a SwiftUI application. Now to recap, last time you saw it, we were all together on Tuesday. If you watched my previous stream, we talked a ton about threading. In fact, threading was the big conversation, and we got into the conversation about actors and what it's like to do threading and why threading is important. I'm not going to repeat all that stuff because we did that on last stream. If you're really interested, you should go back and watch my video on demand, either on Twitch or on YouTube /Custoda. Links are all in the description, and you can hear a great conversation. We had a lot of cool, really smart people on the chat that we were kind of having a great conversation back and forth on it. And what it came down to it was we know a couple different things. And so today we're going to continue on this journey. So one thing we know is that we're talking about databases and performance. Reading is usually not a problem, other than we don't want to block the main thread, the main UI thread, because anytime you do that in your mobile app, you're going to have Sad Panda. Your users are going to be frustrated because they're trying to click on something, nothing's happening because you blocked the main UI thread. So one, we don't want to block the UI thread no matter what. So we're going to use, for reading, in the world of databases, we're not necessarily as concerned about what's going on there as long as we make sure we're not blocking the main UI thread. Reading's kind of easy mode, so we're going to just use a good old actor. And so how we solve that problem was we have a repository actor that we built here. That's going to be a global actor, so it's a new actor. And by doing that, all of our repositories will just inherit from this or set up with this. And because of that, they'll have a shared setup actor, and they will share their states and all that kind of good stuff, and everything's great. Now for writes, that's a little bit different. So writes, we have a problem. Only one database connection could write to the database at once. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute, okay. And you don't want it to be on the main thread because obviously we're going to block the main UI thread. So we need something that actually has threads that we can manage. So we made a little tiny class here that's going to be our worker that's going to do all of our background work for us. It's under our utilities called its background worker. And its job basically is when we do writes to any database connection that we have, we do it on this. So one, we're going to make sure that it's on the same thread so that we don't have to worry about this, right? We'll make sure that this is a singleton or a singleton-like thing, so it's only in the application once. But the theory is that as long as all the writes, regardless of how many connections you have open to the database, are done on the same thread, and it's not the main UI thread, everything works. And this is the secret to getting performance. Now, why does this become a problem? And we talked about this on last stream. Don't code solutions unless you know you're going to have a problem. Like, don't add extra things that you are thinking may happen but actually don't happen. I happen to have built this app before, and I've had to have this problem happened before. And the problem is I can't control replication. I've got a bunch of documents out on a server that are going to come down magically for free. So I got a bunch of data that's coming in that I'm going to be writing to this database file, but I also may be writing a database file because the user is using my app to actually add some data. And if the replicator is writing to the database at the same time as me, now I got problems. And now the solution to that is you have multiple database connections open, but you have to make sure, like I said, go back to that threading story, they have to be running on the same thread. So that's what last streams we went through all that. Went through great details of it. We opened up a bunch of great links to websites that explain actors and stuff like that. We got this code, we test it, we got a bunch of unit tests, we got it working. So what are we going to do today? Well, today I'd like to write some query code. I really would. And that's what we're going to do on Tuesday, but the gods wanted to get the threading stuff done, and I wanted it to be right and perfect. And so I feel really comfortable right now to where we are right now with that. And let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to start out every stream by probably committing our code, right? That's probably a good idea from the previous stream. I should make sure I have committed it at least. So I'm going to open up here and check my status here. And I've got a bunch of stuff that I changed from the last stream that I need to get up there so you guys can see it if you guys want to play along at home. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Fork, and I'm going to, because I'm lazy about typing, so I have this program called Fork that allows me to see what's going on here. You can see I got all my changes. I'm just going to stage all these. I don't use Fork to do the commit, and the reason why is because I have GPG set up on my machine because of work. That's a work requirement, and so I need to do commit through the command line, otherwise commits don't work. So let me go through and make sure that's there, and I'm going to say git commit-m added code for threading repositories, and also we did that for an act. Well, it's not only threading, it's threading and actor for repositories. Added code for threading and actors for repositories. I think that's a good description to remind me what I was doing there. Let's go ahead and so this is what I was getting at. No program knows how to do the GPG stuff. I have to remember my encryption key now. What does this do? Why am I doing this? This signs all the code that I write. And if I can remember my key right, you only get 3 chances, and so you have to type it in right, so you don't want to screw that up. But what that does is when I get and push code in, that should push up in GitHub, that's all the code signed. And that means that it's guaranteed it came from me. There's no hackers that came in and changed the code. We know that it came from me, and it'll be digitally signed with that. And that's just something you can set up if you're into it, and you can even set up your repos in GitHub so that your code must be signed, and it won't take a check-in unless it's signed. I just want to go look at the warehouse repository. This is where we made some, that's the protocol. I want the database version of it. And so we can see it here. And if we go into history, we should be able to see verified. And you can see here, you can see there's my GPG key. So you can see that this check-in was signed in with a GPG key so that you can validate that this is me. And some bad actor didn't come in and check in code that kind of destroy things. So that's why that prompt came up, and that's why I use GPGs. That's a requirement at the place I work, CoachBase. But also, it's just a good practice in the security world to do that. It guarantees that people know that your code is cool. Let's see here. So let's write some query code. That sounds like a good idea. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to add a function. And so in Swift, we do that with the func keyword. And we're just going to write a get func. Now, our get func is going to be async because we like the new async love that's in Swift 5.5 and higher. And we want to return a bunch of warehouses. And let's see here. We want the warehouse itself. And this means array in Swift. It should be at least. And we can... how do we want to do this? Do we want to make an empty array and return that? So normally in the past I've done combine and I get away where I don't return anything. I don't know if ChatGPT was just about to try to tell me what to do here with the plugin. I have a feeling its code would be bad, but you know what? I didn't give it a chance. It doesn't know about, let's go ahead and just do this accept and see what it comes up with. So this is exactly what I did not want at all. In fact, the first couple of lines are okay, but we're not going to do queries with Query Builder. That's the old school way of doing things. I'm a big fan of doing everything with SQL. And so that's what we want to do here. So the Query Builder stuff's wrong, but even here, this is not a great way of doing this from a syntax standpoint for many reasons, actually. Let's kill all this. It got us started though. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, hey, it saved me a couple lines of code here. So we're going to do a try statement here, and we got our DB. So we're going to say create query. And now it's asking for is a query. So we just have to give it a query here. And we can then say if this happens. So if let DB do if let database, comma, this, then this. So this should chain those two things together. So we're unwrapping it. What are we saying here? Why is it mad? Fix. Oh, we already have the DB, so we don't need the question mark anymore. Yeah, that's right. Throws are not handled. Yes, they are. We have a catch here. This should be to do here. Why is it mad now? One second here. Let me just put it in here. It shouldn't know the SQL stuff. Just trying to get Swift happy. Do I have an extra set of? I have an extra set of brackets. There we go. And then what are we saying here? Mutable. Yeah, we'd have to get the results back from the query afterward. That's fine. If let DB, okay, so let's write our query and not worry about the compiler being mad at us now. So we're gonna say we need to select, and we need to select some fields. Now, what does our database even look like? What fields do we have available? That's a good question. How am I gonna find that out? How am I gonna find out what's available in my database? Well, I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna cheat with VS Code. Here's my friend VS Code. Now this has something else completely open in it. This is some .NET stuff I was working on for our documentation team for our try.NET stuff. Let me close that out because that's not what I want to have open. So I'm going to close this folder. I'm going to open up my Xcode folder because we have a plugin for VS Code that allows us to look at Couchbase Lite databases, and that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go to Couchbase here. I'm going to go find my Swift learning path here, and I'm going to just open it up here at the root folder. And you'll see I have an asset folder, and inside my asset, this is my pre-built database of warehouses that I'm going to be using. So I can actually click on this CB2 Lite, and if you look inside of it, you'll see there's a SQLite database. So like I told you on the previous stream, Couchbase Lite, storage engine SQLite, but our rendering and how we encode and everything else, that's called Fleece. And so that's what we're bringing to the table. We have the rock solidness, the stability, and honestly, the flexibility of SQLite, probably one of the most coolest database platforms on the planet, outside of course Couchbase. And we added on this document database system. So you have to think about relationship databases and all the things that you like about document databases, you're getting inside of here on top of replication and all those other features that you'd want to use. So how do we do this? Well, we just take our CB2 Lite file, which I created, and we right click, and there should be an open database option at the very top here. When we do that, it opens our database. And then we can just see all the different scopes and collections. So scopes and collections are like containers. Okay, so think of it like, I used to, when I learned how to program, and this is a really long time ago, back in the 90s, in the early 90s, I had computer science class in college and high school also. And the professor that I learned from explained all this matrixy stuff, all this like multi-dimensional arrays, databases, all this kind of stuff like a file cabinet. Now, I know that most of you, if you're new or you're younger, you probably don't know what a file cabinet is, but it used to be this big thing that had drawers inside of it. When you opened up the drawer, it had a bunch of folders inside of it. And inside the folders, they kept paper back when we used to print things. And so the theory I would always say is that the database itself is like the file cabinet. The drawer coming out is the scope, and the collection is the file folder. And then inside of it, you have documents. And that's literally how Couchbase Lite works. If you were to visualize it like that, you're doing well. Now, a modern example of that is a little bit more complex, I guess, maybe to try to explain. But they're containers basically, and they contain certain things. Like a scope can't have a document inside of it. All can happen inside of scopes are collections, and collections have documents inside of those, and that's our data. For each record that we have, that's how we'd say in the old relationship database world, we have a document instead. And so we have this database file with these scopes, these collections, and inside those collections are documents. By doing that, we can keep things tidy. Like all of our warehouses, we can keep separate from our inventory items and anything else like user profiles. We can keep those separated out, and that just makes it easier to find things. If you think about it, like if you go to a book and you go look at a physical book, I know that once again, I'm old, I'm talking about these physical things. But if you had a physical book and you wanted to find some information about it, you'd either look at the table of contents or the index in the back. And that's how database indexes work, is many ways. It's the same thing. We have, it tells us the page number, and believe it or not, data is stored usually in databases in pages. It's a little bit more complicated than I want to get into today, but I just wanted to kind of explain while we're opening this up what these two things are. So my scope is called warehouse. My collection is called the locations. You can see the little folder, and you can see here it looks like almost like a little like wheel icon, a cog, I guess, is probably what that is. I'm not sure why they picked that icon no, it's not. It's a bullet point. Okay, so it's a bullet point. I'm not sure why Jim, I know the guy that wrote this, Jim, if you're watching this ever, thanks for the plugin. It's really great. And Jim's a super cool guy. I have nothing but great things to say about Jim. Warehouses is our scope, our collection is here, and then we have our document. So let's look at one of our documents. These are all the fields that I can use in my query. So I can get a warehouse ID, I can get a name, an address, a city, a state, a sales, a longitude, a latitude, a location type. That's pretty interesting. Location type. That seems like this usually in the old, before we had scopes and collections, you would have something called a document type field. And it would say what kind of document it was, because we had to throw everything in the same spot. That kind of was terrible because of one, when you're looking at all the documents, they're all in one spot. You have to build really complicated indexes so you can find the particular document types you're looking for. We don't have to do that anymore because in fact we have scope and collections. So that's one of the things it's bringing to the table. It means we need to write less indexes, and it also means you're going to find information faster. But this location type has nothing to do with document type. Instead, it's telling me there's different types of locations, and this particular record's a distribution warehouse. If you think about it for a second, if you were, say for example, you're a winery, instead of beer, let's talk about wineries for a second. If you're a wine drinker, if you are a wine distributor or a company that basically makes wine, you're going to have certain warehouses that just have your barrels of wine in them, and they have to age over a period of time, and it takes several years to make wine, right? If you want a good wine. So you may have a inventory system that's not only tracking all your distribution of like your wine bottles, and I have this many cases I sent to this one and this many cases over here, but you may also be tracking your inventory of your actual wine barrels and what warehouses have those in them and how many years they've been in there. And there's depreciations, and this is complicated when it gets into accounting, but anything you have in your inventory, you can depreciate over a period of time. And so you may need that inventory to track that, so you could track the value of it, and you can go through and do your depreciation value. And the reason for that is, say for example, the warehouse catches on fire. Well, then all that product that was destroyed in that warehouse fire, you could write off, and theoretically speaking, that's a loss, right? And so you'd have to know how much the value of that is. You'd have to know how long it's been there, so you'd know the true value of it. And that's what all these inventory programs are about, is for people to be able to track all this kind of stuff. And that's why we're writing this one particularly. So that's what the location type's used for. We have a shipping to. This just says what states the distributor can ship to. And these are just codes. And this is for analytics, so that if you were to run some analytic queries against this, you could look at your distribution patterns. You can see, okay, I can track this warehouse is, we have this 80% of our distribution of this warehouse is going to California. Californians like to drink wine, whatever that is, right? We were trying to look at those statistics. Having this kind of data in there helps you be able to do those kind of things. But this is what I need for my query. So I'm going to move this off screen so I can have it it's still open and be able to see all those fields so I can type those in. Now you can say, well, Aaron, why didn't you just use star? And I could use star, but I feel star is kind of destructive. So one, in other, you can see here, look at this. Hey, look at this. It's actually giving me a better version of what this probably should be. It's not right, because database manager, we've already aliased this out to DB because of the fact that we needed to get it, if it's nullable, we needed to get it back and get it unnulled or nullable. But this is actually closer. I'm going to accept this because that's pretty close to what I want. The only difference is that instead of database manager, we need DB manager, and we need DB manager there, DB also, because the fact, like I said, and we don't want to execute it. We just want to get the query back. We'll execute that separately. Now the star we have to get rid of. This is what I was talking about. So I'm going to say warehouse ID. We also need, let's see, the name, address 1, address 2, city, state, postal code, sales tax. I probably don't need that actually for what I'm drawing here. Attitude, longitude. I'm just making sure I don't spell these wrong. Location type and shipping to, and my year. I don't need my year-to-date balance, so I know for a fact I don't need that. I'm not going to bring that in. From, and let's see here. That's right. So why is it mad now? Here's throwing here in the handle. Okay, you're wrong. There's a catch right here. Well, obviously I'm wrong because the compiler doesn't lie. So let's see what I've done wrong here. So one, I've got this extra from the CoPilot writing this for me. That's probably a problem. Oh, maybe that was the problem all along. That was the problem. When a CoPilot wrote it, it added, I took off the extra parenthesis, and that's what's going on. All right. Nope, it's still mad about something else. Now let's see what it's mad about. So let's see here. If let, so we're going to say if let query try. Oh. So this is an if statement. So we need to open the if statement. Try. I was right the first time. I did need that for the create query function because this is a function call. So let's see here. Let me read this. So we have if let db equals and if, so if db is cool, this is not no, this is nullable. Then we're gonna get the query from it. We're gonna say give us a query. The query should take in a string, if I remember right. And our string is gonna say from, and the from, let's look at our count. What do we do here? Yeah, and so if you look here, it's the same thing we did down here. Oh, we created the query first. I see what we did. I did this a little bit different below. Let's try to follow the same pattern we did and see if this is going to work for us. All right. So we make a string out of this. I keep forgetting I have a cheat sheet right down here when I did, right? So then we're going to say, so why is this bad though? Oh, because it's saying that these values here don't exist. Let's find out what they really are. DB warehouse. Oh, that's the database. This is right. Oh God. You know what? It was right the first time. I told it it was wrong, but it was right. It is database manager. That's where the values are, not DB. DB is the actual database pointer to the actual physical database itself. All right, let's go through and show that off real quick here so we can have a clear understanding of what's going on here. I'm forgetting my own code. Our database manager manages the database. It's a observable object. I'm not sure if we need that just yet. That's usually used for Combine. We're adding it in because if I do, when I do replication, we probably will need that. And so, I mean, could just get rid of it right now because I'm not using any observables, but I probably will in the very near future. If we look here, these are, right here is our warehouse scope and collection name. Now, why do I put them in here instead of typing it out in strings? Well, that to me is magic strings, and I don't like magic strings. Magic strings are something where I just type in text all over the place, and then if I type it in wrong in one spot, it breaks everything, and the compiler won't tell me because of the fact that it's a string, and the compiler doesn't look at the values inside of strings, even if you're a strongly typed language. So because of that, these are kind of my ability to make variables so I don't have to worry about typing that collection name in wrong. You'll see I'm using it in multiple spots. I use it in this query here. I'm going to use it in this query. I'm going to write another query. I'm going to use it. So because I'm using it in multiple spots, it's better to just define it somewhere. And that way you don't have to worry about typing it wrong 100 times. So that's the reason why we're getting the values there. Now, one would argue that really these fields are used only by the warehouse. So should they not be in the warehouse repository? If the warehouse repository is also managing the DB, I would say yes. But since the DB manager is actually managing the properties of the DB, I feel more comfortable putting it there. And multiple repositories may need access to this. And there's probably an argument for that to say, well, that's technically speaking a property, though, still of the repository. It should probably be in the repository. You're probably not wrong on that. But we're just going to keep it in database manager for right now to keep things simple. And this, you can get to all kinds of arguments of where to put your stuff all the time here. So now what we need our results, right? And so what we need to do is we're going to first get a explain out of this. Okay, what's an explain? Well, first, let's do something really smart. Let's only do this if we're going to debug. And that's going to be interesting because you're going to say, wait, what? What's that mean? All right, let's take a look at this. I've got some examples here. I'm just going to copy this right here and bring it into our repository so we can see this. So we want to tell the compiler only if this is a debug build, do this particular thing. We don't want to release this into production, right? But we want to have maybe some troubleshooting stuff that can help us out. That'd be kind of nice, right? What happens if this goes wrong on me? I would like to know what's going on. So I'm going to use something called I'm going to get the explain out of this, and I'll just show you what that is in a second here. So now what I need to do is, now that I have a query, I need to, well, first I need to turn this into a DB query. So we're going to say if let DB query equals, now this is where we can tell the database, create query, and the query would be the query that we have here. And then we're going to open this up here. And that's going to say, if we are able to make our query, we're being very, very safe here. We're not sure if this query, the string is going to work or not, but we're make the assumption we can. This is a try. Because, we don't know, maybe the database is closed or something's going on. We're not really sure why. But if this is, what's going on here? Initializer for condition binding must have an optional type, not query. Is this that it's saying query must be query? Okay, so it's not the label it's mad about. Query is a string. Where is the... This should just work. Wait a minute. Why am I even looking at the... Well, I'm going to open the docs anyways, because this is how I usually write code. When I need to, I keep the docs open. And I actually go to the API reference right away. And I'm not screwing around, right? I go right to the source. And I go, hey, where's my query function? So I can see what the heck's going on here. So let's see here. Why don't I see my query? Create query. It's a string and it takes in, so I don't need a variable here because it gives me underscore, and Swift, that means I don't need it, and returns a query. So let's go back to our code and see what I did wrong here. That is, according to this API, right. If we go look here, function create query, it throws something, we're catching it, and they would bring me back a query variable. That should be right. Let's take a look at what we have down here for our account also. So I did query here, and I said that try DB query. Take the if statement out because it's mad because okay, well. So normally you wouldn't have to do this. Okay, so if we look down at the count, let me explain my thought pattern to what we're doing here, why I want to do this different than count. Count was an easy one. I knew I was going to win on count. That's pretty easy. But anytime you start getting into a query where you're going to maybe put a where and stuff, there's some cheat code level things. Up, down, left, right, BA, the old Konami code from Nintendo. There's some cheat code things you could do to try to make your life easier. So what am I doing here? I'm trying to get a query from the database so I can ask the query to explain to me the execution plan it's going to do when it runs. And what that will do, that'll give me the ability to troubleshoot what the heck's going on if this goes south on me. So in order to do that though, I need to get the query by itself. Now normally I would chain this together. As you can see here, I just tell the query to create the query and then execute it and get all the results back from it, skipping a pointer to the query. Now the problem with that, I can't get the execution plan easy from that. Is Swift, Clive Thompson over on YouTube is asking, is Swift similar to TypeScript? Sort of. TypeScript to me is a lot of, hey, TBD gamer, how you doing too? Welcome everybody to the stream. Clive, TypeScript is more for web. It is kind of based, the person that made TypeScript is the same person or people at Microsoft that wrote C#. So what TypeScript does is bring strong types, the ability to have things like integers and the things that have like dates and objects that are strongly typed to JavaScript, which is not a strongly typed language. That's what TypeScript does. So it's a web piece of technology. It's mostly used when you're building web apps. Swift is for native iOS, Mac, Apple TV, Watch, and Vision Pro development. Any Apple device, Swift is the primary language for that. Syntax wise, it's similar. Like if you looked at it from a syntax standpoint, Swift actually looks more like Kotlin than it does look like TypeScript. But it's similar. The let statement's really from JavaScript, not from TypeScript. But yeah, the let statement works kind of the same way. It makes a static variable. Var would be used if you want to make a regular variable in Swift. So those are very similar. The word func, F-U-N-C, is how you make a function. That's similar to how we do it in TypeScript. In Kotlin, it'd be F-U-N, and that's how you make a function. The return type is the type that's after the pointer here. So we basically have func, which is our function, and then our name of our function, any of our parameters. And you do it in the same order that you do it in TypeScript. So that looks very similar to TypeScript. You have your, whether or not it's async or not, and then your return type. So yeah, in some ways it is very similar syntax-wise to TypeScript. I would say if you know any modern type-based language, you can learn any other one if you have some computer science background very quickly. Like if you know TypeScript really well, you could do it probably in a weekend. Do I do SwiftUI? This application will be a SwiftUI application. So yes, I have done SwiftUI in the past. Not a lot. I am a UIKit expert and an AppKit expert, and I am striving to become a SwiftUI expert. But the only way to do that is to build apps, that's what this is for. So welcome to the chat, Smallest99. It's very similar to Rust. So Swift. Apple used to have a different language called Object-C, which was C with objects, and everybody hated the syntax. So what Swift did was Swift brought in things like generics, things that Object-C didn't have, and brought in modern syntax because some people didn't like using a lot of brackets. And Object-C, anytime we wanted to call we had an object and we wanted to call a function inside of it or send it a message, we would use square brackets around it, and people didn't like that. I thought the syntax was fine. I wrote Object-C for years and really didn't hate it, but a lot of people did. So that's why they developed Swift. And Swift is a pretty good language for that then. So I kind of like it. But yeah, I do SwiftUI work, and we will be building some SwiftUI here. This application is that, and we'll see it run in a few seconds here. We're right now just writing tests. So what we're doing here is we're building a database into our application, and we're writing the queries for that, and then we're going to be able to test those queries, and then we can start building UI on top of it. This is the order of how I normally build a real application. I'd like to have my data or mocks or some kind of version of my data so that when I build my UI, I can test it right away, right? And I'd like to write tests to guarantee I know that I'm getting my data properly. So the tests I'm going to be writing today also are integration tests. Using the real live embedded database to validate that the data I'm getting back is cool, and that will eventually be used on my views. You can call them a page, you can call it a view. There's many different names for something that you display in the UI. Do you work for any companies? Also, what database provider are you using? I do work for a company. I work for Couchbase. Couchbase is a database platform company. And so I am using Couchbase Lite, our mobile database. One of the things I'm an expert at, supposedly, is Couchbase Lite. At Couchbase, I'm a developer advocate. So I advocate for different people using different of Couchbase's technologies. One of them, of course, is Couchbase Lite. I'm also an expert of Capella, and I also run some teams that do build various things for Capella. I can't talk about what we're building because it's not in production yet. So I can just say that there's other cool things we're building, and I help out with that too. And so not only do I do mobile stuff, but I also do TypeScript and front end stuff with React and stuff like that. Sorry for a second there, hydration break. But let's see here. Let's go through and cheat code this. So how we're going to cheat code this so we can see what the heck is going on is there's something called an explain. And SQLite also has this built in. And if you're using SQLite, you also want to try to do this when you can. So we're going to say only if we're debugging. Let's get the explain plan for this. So we're going to say let, and so that's going to make us a constant, right? We're going to say explain we're going to say that's going to be equal to a try query.explain. And this should give us the explain plan. Now, you're not always going to get the greatest query explain. We've already got the query from DB, so this should be a query object. That should work. Unless the explain. Why are we not getting the queries explain plan to come up? Let me look at the API. This can't have changed between 3.0 and 3.1. Where is my explain? I don't see it anymore. Well, that's weird. Oh wait, because this is a database object. I need to look at the query object. Duh. Don't be an idiot, Aaron. Let's go look at query. Here we go. There is explain. So explain returns a string describing the implementation of the compiled query. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want. What tech stacks do I use as a question? Oh boy. It depends on the project, really, to tell you the truth. Clive. For example, I've done Flutter in the past. Flutter is fine if you're doing cross-platform. I think it's a pretty cool thing to do. If I'm doing cross-platform, I've also done a lot of .NET, and I run a stream every day at lunch where I talk about .NET stuff, and .NET's cool. On the Android side, I do Kotlin and Java for Android development, and have done that for several years. In fact, I probably consider myself, I know Android probably better than iOS right now, only because for about a year and a half, we were building the Kotlin SDK for mobile, and that's when I started at Couchbase. So my first year at Couchbase, I did nothing but Kotlin stuff because I was helping the SDK team get ready for the Kotlin shipping, and I had to write a bunch of examples and stuff. Hey, Jonas, welcome to the chat. Our buddy Jonas is here. Man, we are getting a full house here. All right. So I've done Kotlin on Android, and actually have done so much of that, I consider myself way better at Jetpack Compose in Kotlin than I am at SwiftUI, but I'm learning, and that's the most important thing. And I feel with the background in UI kit, and all the other functional programming languages, SwiftUI is really cool, and it's just more figuring out the syntax. No, if I'm building for the web, I'd probably be building in React, to tell you the truth. I run a team of React developers at, like I said, at Couchbase, doing things I can't talk about. React would probably be for web platform what I'm doing. I've done Angular in the past. I've done, oh boy, if you go back, I've been doing this since the 90s. So I've done everything from jQuery, Knockout, Angular, Angular 2. I did some Angular 8 stuff at EY, ran a team that ran Angular and React. So I've done just about any of the modern web frameworks, and even before modern web, we did CGI bin with C, and that's how we would compile our code back in the early 90s to run on web before JavaScript even existed. Yeah, I've been around a long time. So, if I'm doing web, it's probably native React. If I'm doing a backend, it's probably .NET or Java. Those are two popular things. I've actually done some backend API stuff also in Python before, using Fast API, which is fine. I always say I'm not always an expert. Let's see here. You're right. By the way, our friend Somas99 is, I said query, but I meant DB query. The query is a string, and that's what's going on here. So the object is the wrong type of object, and that will fix our particular area there. And then what we could do, if we're getting this out, is we can just print this out. So we can just say print and explain. Now, what this is going to do is this going to give us a little cheat code. With React, so React is a little bit more conversation. Clive's got a lot of questions here. 1 second here. Let me answer Clive's question though. So React is a little bit more complicated. I can't give you all the information because some of that stuff is a little technical at Couchbase. But what I can say is this, is that we are using, I think it'd be okay to at least explain we're using modular federation, which modular federation can work in Vite, but it's actually pretty bad right now. If you're not doing modular federation, you can get away with using Vite, and Vite's pretty great as a build package and minification platform. It's way easier than Webpack, but Webpack with modular federation just works better. And we are using modular federation, so because of that, we are kind of honed into Webpack. We have a pretty complicated Webpack configuration for how we build and minify our stuff down for various reasons I don't want to get into on this stream. But Webpack is old, and I know that a lot of people hate it because it can be complicated, but it is solid. It's been around for a long time. And if you know what you're doing, you can do some pretty amazing things with Webpack. So we are using Webpack. Yeah, I've heard of Bun, but we're not, we have a code base that's been around for a while. And anytime you get into new stuff in the web world, it's really hard to kind of just constantly be going for new. At some point in time, we just try to get features out for end users, right? And so sometimes you can use some new stuff and sometimes you can't. We've already made some pretty complicated decisions around our deployment and how we want to do things on the web front end for our cloud based products and stuff like that we're not going to be able to always take in the latest greatest of stuff. And so, but yeah, the thing about JavaScript, there's always new stuff going around. Oh boy, it's like every day there's a new framework. That's the joke. But I think, hey, if you're doing JavaScript and you like JavaScript, you want to use React and stuff like that, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't like to say that there's only one way of doing things and one way is the right way. It's whatever your team wants to use. If you want to use React to build apps, go build with React. If you want to use Swift like I'm doing here and you're trying to do everything native, yeah, use Swift. Swift's great, man. Swift's awesome. I love it. If you're a .NET person, use .NET. Use whatever platform that you like to use. It's just use that, use the tools. Development languages are just like tools when it comes out to, if you're building a house and you're trying to frame, use a framing hammer. If you're trying to nail up a picture, you're not going to use a big sledgehammer to put a picture up, right? You're going to break your wall open. So it's like, don't have loyalty to any tools and don't think that the one tool is going to rule the universe forever. It just doesn't work that way. I've been doing this for 30 years, and let me tell you, the languages I started with are barely used anymore. Things are always changing. So I have a feeling in another 30 years we'll be talking about totally different languages and totally different platforms, obviously, as technology constantly improves. So instead, the thing to do is what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm keeping an open mind going, SwiftUI is the new thing. I haven't built a lot of apps I've shipped with SwiftUI. I'd like to learn more about it. I'm going to start building some apps. And why would I just stream that and learn from the community and learn as people together? And that's always a fun way to do things. And that's why we're here. So we've got the explain plan for this, and that's pretty cool. And usually I'd actually probably say that we'd probably want to have, because the logs are going to get kind of bad from the standpoint, if we have verbose logging on, it's going to get crazy real quick. So we should probably make something we could search for the logs with. So we probably want something like that. So I can search for the word explain and I can find it with that particular key. And let's see here. I did my little backwards. I'm going to do it like that. And that should get us the ability to find that quick. No, Swift is really easy to get into. It's super fast, and if you play with it for a weekend, you're going to find that it's one of the fastest things in the world. SwiftUI is a lot like React. So if you've done React before, it's functional in that standpoint, and it's really easy to get yourself into it. I would say that SwiftUI has opened the world of iOS development up hugely, where UI kit, the way that I learned how to do it is really complicated. It's uses MVC as a pattern, and you have to know about delegates and data sources and all these things in order to just get data to show up on the screen. In SwiftUI, you could literally use Redux, in order to do this as a pattern. So all the things you know about React and stuff like that, you can use inside of SwiftUI if you want. It has a state system very similar to modern web development. So because of that, Swift is really easy to pick up and get into. And over in the Android world, we have the same thing with Jetpack Compose and Kotlin. And Kotlin looks a lot like Swift. I told everybody on the stream on Tuesday, there's times where I'm writing Swift and I'm trying to figure out why it doesn't compile. It's because I wrote in Kotlin syntax. Because I wrote Kotlin for so long, sometimes I get the two languages syntax switched up. But all these languages are pretty easy to get yourself into, if you have a computer science background. If you've programmed for long enough and you know what scope is, you know what if statements are, you understand functions, you understand classes, you understand all the things of modern programming, you can get into any framework pretty quickly, in my opinion. So let's see here. Now that we've got our explain plan, we can just say, well, now we want to try to get our results back, okay? So the things is that we're going to get multiple records back, but we want to get those back in and put them into objects that we can deal with. So we need to loop through those results. So we're going to say, we're going to make a loop, a for each loop. So for result in, and now we need to try to execute the query that we have. So we built that DB query, and we're going to say we want to execute that. Execute. And then we're going to put that on the loop, okay? And now that we have that, we can go through. Now, of course, I have the GitHub CoPilot plugin installed. So you can see here, it's giving me a bunch of examples. But in this example, it's giving me a bunch of manual work I have to do, honestly. It's trying to use a dictionary to get the information back. Oh, no, Clive, dude, any question you want to ask, you can ask. Anybody in chat. The whole point of a stream is for people to ask questions and get answers. That's why you're on a stream. The community involvement is very important to me. It's why I'm here. I gave a big lecture on the last stream that, one of the reasons I streamed is because when I started out, my boss was super smart. His name was Charlie Gershfield, and he taught me so much. And I felt terrible because I could never give back to him. But I remember when I stopped, oh, it's right here. It's this little pop-up window that came up here, this reject and accept. This is from GitHub CoPilot. I have a plugin installed called CoPilot for Xcode. And this plugin right here, I have set up so that it will actually give me recommendations from CoPilot, and it brings it up in a little window from time to time. And I have that kind of set up for me. And sometimes the CoPilot stuff is really good, and sometimes it's really bad. But my boss, Charlie, when I left that company and he was leaving right around the same time, I really felt bad. I was like, hey, man, for like the last 6 years, you really helped me grow as a person. And I asked him, how can I ever repay you? He said, well, don't. He's like, just make sure that when you become me in your career, that you help others. He's like, don't hoard knowledge, be a good developer, and don't treat people like crap, and make sure that they have the tools to do their job when you become me. And I was like, oh, that's really smart, because Charlie was smart. He still is smart, I'm sure. I haven't talked to him about a year on LinkedIn, but when he said that to me, that really kind of stuck with me, and it stuck with me my entire career of like, hey, we have to help each other out. So if anybody in chat has questions, please shoot them my way. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, answer questions to my best of my abilities. Of course, I'm human, not a robot, which means I don't always have all the world's answers. And my wife says 33% of the time I'm wrong. So I could be wrong on some things. So what I'm writing now is some code that I want to get the data out, but I want to get it in JSON. And you're probably saying, well, why would you want it in JSON format? And well, the reason is because that's how the world works is JSON. We're a document database system. Our documents are based in JSON. Why would I want to do that? Now, I need to tell it I need Unicoding, and I want it Unicode 8 because I know that's how my document's encoded. Okay, let's think about this for a second. This is how you get information back from a REST API. So if you are used to writing serialization code that uses encodables to get your data back in and out of Swift, well then Couchbase Lite is a document database that uses JSON. That means you can use the same syntax, the same technology you're doing, and you can do all this stuff pretty quickly with your just normal encoding decoding. So I can just say let warehouse equals, and I'm going to say try. Now I need to get the JSON decoder that comes in Swift. I'm just going to tell it to decode this stuff that I have. Now I need to tell it what type of object I'm going to decode into, right? This is almost like it's not typecasting, but we're trying to tell it that. So we're going to say, we know that it's a warehouse. We're going to say the self, and that should give us the type of object, and we want to do it from the data that we just got. What this should do is this is very similar to C#, how we would, or any other language that we would want to go through and just use the JSON. We're going to get the raw JSON document back from the database, and that's in its raw format. We want it Unicode 8. Unicode 8 is really important. That gives you support for emojis, and honestly, it's more for languages outside of ASCII, like Chinese, Japanese, Portugal, all the languages that have special characters. I used to work at a big accounting firm. I've said this before on streams, EY, and we had to take our mobile apps. They had to work in 40 languages, and so everything we did was in Unicode, so we could guarantee that all these different languages we supported. Russian. I can tell you that the three hardest for us was Russian, Japanese, and Chinese, Mandarin. Those are really hard to get the languages converted over, and Unicode was the only way to guarantee that. If you didn't encode, I promise you'd run into problems. And we had Unicode all over the place. There is Unicode 16 also, which is 16-bit. I'm not getting into Unicode arguments of 8 versus 16. All you need to know is that for most languages, you're going to be fine with Unicode 8, but in some special situations, you may need to be looking at Unicode 16 encoding. It really just depending on your platform and what you're doing. For the sake of this stream, we're gonna keep with Unicode 8. So now that we got that data, right? This is pretty easy. We basically can go through and just add it to our array that we made up here. So up here we have our array of warehouses. So we can say warehouses, and then we just want to say append, and we're going to put that warehouse in it. Now you're probably saying, Aaron, can't you just string these two together with a comma? The answer, I could, right? And this becomes the if statement, and that's proper Swift. So we're basically stringing the two checks because we're making objects. That should work. Why is it telling me it can't? Is it because of the try? Yeah, okay, sorry. It's because of the try. So I can't do that. All right. Stop showing off. Go back to the way you did it before. Because we have our try statement here. That should work though. That should get us a warehouse, and it should automatically put it into the array. We should loop through all of them. We should actually come back, and then we should be able to catch that if it breaks. By the way, I love ChatGPT. It's amazing. Do you know why Couchbase Lite at least opts for storing JSON, and doesn't the library have a helper for decoding these documents using JSON decoder? It doesn't currently. JSON support's new, actually. Just getting the documents out in JSON is new, starting Couchbase Lite 3. So it's just because it's new. I'm sure I'll actually take that back to the SDK team as good feedback of why can't we just have a single method to call that does this for us? You know, why can't you just send the type in and get it back? The old syntax used to be is that the information can come back in a dictionary, and then you can pull each individual key as a key value dictionary out and put it into an object. But that's a lot of boilerplate point code you have to write then. And that's what when I had ChatGPT do it, that's what the code that it wrote was. And that's legal. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if we look at it, the user profile repository, I do exactly that here. So because this is a learning path, and I'm going to provide inside of here different repositories with different ways of doing the same thing. So I already wrote this code back when I was on vacation. I was overseas in Europe. I started this code, as just a side project to have some fun, keep my, like I said, keep my skills up, and also learn SwiftUI. So this is how you would do it. If you're doing it for using dictionaries. And so what I could do is I could get the dictionary. Now this is a little bit different because I'm using key value, and key value is a little bit different than query. But you can see here, if I have the key and I know it, I can get a document back, and then it comes back as basically a collection, like a dictionary. And that dictionary has a key value. And if you know the keys, you can get all the values back. And so this is another way that you actually can get the results back in a dictionary and do that. Yeah, I haven't changed this code from our stream on Tuesday. This is code I wrote when I was in Europe. So this is the old stuff that I wrote, and I haven't gone back and fixed it. Actually, that just reminds me, we should probably put a to-do in here. Fix this, replace with actor code. That's a good idea. Thanks for reminding me that. I do not work on the Swift. I work as a developer advocate. I work primarily on teaching developers how to use our SDK. But most recently, probably about 10 months ago now, I guess, I was asked, because I used to lead development teams for years. I was a tech lead for about 6 years at EY for their mobile team. But I also led a team of Ninja React developers writing a very complicated React front-end interface. It was a very complicated thing. I can't probably legally get into what I built because I think it's all internal, and they would probably I know I have an NDA with them. Anyways, it was a very complicated product. Couchbase found that out and said, well, hey, we need somebody also to run a front-end team for us doing something really complicated. You have a background of that. Could you temporarily run this project? So for the last 10 months, I've been wearing two different hats. I wear a hat of where I continue to do my developer advocacy stuff, where I'm out there working with the SDK team, making sure that our releases are cool, also teaching developers how to use our SDK, writing blog articles, writing example code, just talking to developers about it, getting feedback, and working a lot with the SDK team directly. So Jim, Jans, Boy, the SC team is going to be mad if I can't remember all their names. Yeah, it's an interesting job. I'm never bored at Couchbase. Let me tell you, very cool company to work for. Very cool technology they have, and a ton of smart people work here. One of my favorite things is there's not a day I don't learn something from somebody. Where somebody says, "Hey, did you know this?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I did not know that." And we do a lot of complicated things, like we have full text search in our product. So there's all these kind of different things. Analytics, and so if you're data warehousing, all those kind of things, you end up learning a lot if you don't know it. I've done data warehouses for years, so our product, that kind of makes sense to me. But things like full text search, I'm not an expert at. I know enough to be dangerous, and I've done it before in both Azure, and I've done it with what the heck's it called now? Elastic. That's what we use at EY. And so I know Elastic enough to be dangerous, but our we have a full text searches. It's about 70% of what Elastic does. I mean, if you need some pretty basic stuff, you probably could just use ours. You don't even need Elastic. We have a connector that allows you to river information downstream to Elastic if you wanted to, but MongoDB is a product out there, a document database product. Mongo is biggest. I used to use Mongo for years. I could talk a lot about it. Mongo's biggest problem comes is when you try to scale it. You need sharding, and sharding sucks. It's terrible. It's so hard to do sharding and get it right. And if your shards anything goes wrong with your shards, figuring that out and fixing it is really hard. We don't do that. We have virtual buckets, it's called. And so because of that, you'll never have a sharding strategy with Couchbase, and you never have to really do anything but talk to the SDK. You say, SDK, give me a document. It doesn't matter how many nodes are in the cluster. It'll just give it to you. We scale automatically. And so, okay. So if you're just using a single server, MongoDB is probably fine for you. You get into sharding, and it's a whole nother conversation that is really hard and not great. It is some of the worst things ever in my career was getting into sharding in Mongo. It's just such a pain in the butt. Couchbase is beautiful how great we do scaling. It's the reason why people use us, honestly. Some of the biggest companies in the world use us because of that. Couchbase scales ridiculously well. So let's see here. I've got this query done, folks. Let's see what's going on here. We need to make a test for this. We should probably make sure that we can get some results back. And to do that, we should write tests. And I know I've talked about this before. Developers, I have found that some developers don't like writing tests. I personally don't understand this hatred for it, but I can kind of sort of see it. It's not a waste of time, folks. Write tests. I don't know what to say. It's a pretty good idea to write tests. We're going to write a test to make sure that our query works. So we're going to say test warehouse, not rest, test warehouse, get query. And this is going to be async, and it's going to throw, it could possibly just go dangerous for us, right? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to copy and paste. Most people are going to say, don't copy and paste there. And that's every time you copy and paste, a puppy dies. And that is not true. I love puppies. We have 3 dogs. It is not true, but for me, I can probably cut and paste a bunch of stuff and save myself a little bit of time. This stuff, I could put it in an initializer, but it's a little bit complicated how this works, and that ends up breaking the tests. I know I need to fix this later, but the problem is that why is it pissed now? I haven't even done anything and it's mad at me. Usually you have your arrangement code. So there's a method that you can override in your test that basically says every single time a test run this particular code. And for 95% of the time, that thing works. But I've got a very specific case here where it doesn't work and it kind of breaks things for me. This is not knowable. Why is it saying this? I think it's just a beta because this is the same syntax. Oh, I'm missing the S. Good Lord, it's gonna be that day today. All right, so let's go here. So we are getting the query. So we need a repository, and then we're going to say, instead of this though, we're gonna get back, not the count, we're gonna get back the results. And we're gonna say get, and that should give us our results. And we're gonna say, we wanna make sure this is not nil. And we want to say results count. We want to make sure that our value is back. And how many records do we have in this database is the question. Yeah, the setup doesn't. Boy, do I want to get into that today? Here, I've got a base class already set up for this, and I actually tear down with errors here. And so this actually does work. The teardown works, but getting rid of the database and how it works, the tear up sometimes breaks because I have multiple databases, and it's a little bit complicated of a game to get into. Not all tests need that, and so if I were to put it in this class, I can't override it because I can't guarantee which test needs a single database versus multiple databases. It is very repetitive code. It is. Yeah, mine are async. That's not my problem right now. Isn't with that. My problem is that not every test works the same way because I have multiple databases, and when we get into replication, it's going to get really hard. And so, just saying you have one base class with one tear up and tear down doesn't work for me because my setup could be very different between tests. Right now, I've got lucky enough where these two tests are almost the same, but most of my tests will not be that way. Yeah, my teardown should be handling that without problems. I know it works because all the tests pass, right? But let's go check this. Now, the one thing I don't remember is how many records are in this database. How many are there? Let's take a look here. Let's go back to VS Code, our friend here. VS Code is going to tell us how many records. I think there's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 documents in this database. So that number should be 18. No, I already have it there. Count should be 18. Oh, duh, because I already have the count. I already have the test up here for count. Duh, it's the same value. But we wanted to go through and make sure that the first database is right. So we can get the first one out and check its values. This is static. This is a pre-built database, which means warehouse locations should be the same. So what we should be able to do is get the first record out of the database, and we should be able to check a couple of things about it. So let's also in our act, let's also get a record. I could. Let me get the record back. So I'm going to say document equals results 0. And that's going to get the first document back out of the results. Okay. And that should be a warehouse by theory. And if we do that, now we could do some tests against that. We can say xc test assert equals, and we can say that we're going to say, let's get this GUID out of VS Code here. Copy value. And we're going to say document dot warehouse ID, and then we're going to say warehouse ID should be set to this GUID, or UUID, I think is what they call it outside of .NET. And then what we can also do is make sure that the name is Santa Clara Warehouse, copy value, and the rest of it, if we have these two, we know that the pre-built database is working right. This would be the name, and we could say, we'll say name should be this value. Because it's a pre-built database, the theory is that replicators shouldn't kick in right away. This should be default values. Does Couchbase Lite always guarantee the same results order if you're querying the database? And the answer would be depends on your query. If you have an order by clause, otherwise it would be by date inserted usually, because it'd be in the order that the data is in the database itself. Right, so the documents are in a certain order that they were put in the database. If you do an order by clause, you can tell it whatever order you want it to be in, but by default it would be there. And I get what you're getting at. The theory would be is, do I need a predicate to basically search for that document, because that may not be the first document, right? And that would be the theory. Let's check that real quick. Excuse me. Sorry, I still have a little bit of my cold or my sinus infection from when I was over in Europe. Still trying to kick it. Let's run this test and see what happens. The theory would be is that this should work. But chat has brought up a great scenario where I'm just grabbing the first record, and the first record could be wrong. So let's see what's going on here. Let's go through I want to see testing. I want to see my results. It's waiting to attach the application. Our application should pop up, and we're getting out of range. That's not good. That means that something went wrong. That's why we write tests. All right, so 0 would mean that we didn't get any data back for some reason. Let's see what our result is. Yep, 0 results back. Let's go take a look and see what's going on with this situation here. Why did we go bad? So one, I was kind of explaining that one thing we should be able to do is if we get our console up, we should have been able to see what was going on with the explain plan, right? If the explain plan worked or not. Let's go back to our, here, let's put ourselves a breakpoint in after query here. Let's see if we can figure out what the heck's going on with this world here. And see if we can figure out what's going on. Let me also open our log here so we can see what the heck's going on here. Because we put that in, remember we put that explain in to try to help us here. So let's see here, decoding error. Here's where we go. It's a decoding error. Well, we already know what's going on here. Year to balance. I did not include year to balance, and my object has it, so it's mad because it's not there. And so that is my fault. And right here where I have shipping to, I said that there is a year to balance field, and I forgot to include it. And so because of the fact that my warehouse is codable, all these things should exist. And year-to-date balance, you can see here, is not nillable. And that's going to break everything. So shipping to is nillable, which means if I did not return in my query, it'd be okay. But here, because we're saying that this codable object, I must have a value back for this. And that's where my mistake is. So year to, you could say, did you do that on purpose to explain how to debug? I wish I was that smart where I said I did that on purpose to show you guys all on the stream how to debug this. That's not the case. You're given, if you thought that, you're giving me way more intelligence than I deserve. I am human, just like the rest of you all. I make mistakes all the time. No matter how long you've been doing this, you're going to make mistakes. That's just the way the world works. And the sooner you get used to that, the better you're off. Let's run this test again and see what happens now, and then maybe we'll do some refactoring here as part of the second part of the stream to see if we can't get a helper method to take all this arrange code out. So our query should be here. Let's go ahead and just jump down. And one of the things I'm really interested in is see, let me delete this breakpoint now. I don't need it anymore. I really want to see this DB query explained. So let me go through here and see if I can clear the console so that we can see that in action. Let's go ahead and step over, and there's our explain. This is one of the most pro tips I can give you as a developer advocate or a person that's telling you about CodeSpace Lite. And honestly, if you're using SQLite, it works the same way. It works the same way. The explain plan also is SQLite friendly. So you can go find that syntax in the SQLite documentation. But what the explain plan will do here is it will give you everything it's doing. You can see here, it's giving me what the real query is. So you can see here, it's telling me CodeSpace Lite's going to convert this into a SQLite query. It's telling me what the query is. It's telling me from warehouse location. So that's the scope and collection I'm coming in. Here's a pointer to it. It's going through the inventory is the name of my application. So that's why you see this date timestamp here. And then this is the 9th query that I've ran. So that's just query number 9. And it's compiling this down to what we call nickel. That's our version of SQL, CodeSpace. It's a SQL 92 compatible version of SQL, but what this gives us the ability is in regular SQL, you can't have nested objects, but in ours, you can. And so that means you can have sub-documents inside of a document or arrays. And we completely support that. But because regular SQL is a relationship database thing, there is no ability to support that. So that's what nickel or SQL++. If you see the word SQL++ or you see N1QL, they mean the same thing. They just mean SQL 92 compatible CodeSpace version of SQL. I think there's another platform that also uses nickel, but we're primarily the people that use it. And it gives you that nested objects and array support. Hydration break again because I'm talking so much. Let's see here. So then it's compiling that down. So this is one thing that you want to understand about CodeSpace Lite also. That's really kind of important. Every query is compiled, and that's compiled down into bytecode. Now, you're going to say, okay, you're compiling down a query. That takes execution time. So the reason I bring this up is that if you run this query often, like say, for example, you're going back and forth between two screens. And when you come back to the screen, you run that code all over again. Well, it's going to recompile that query every time. So if you're looking for a performance tip, pre-compile your queries and make them static so that they basically are in memory pre-compiled. And if you do that, you won't have to compile the query every time. And that's a big performance tip. And so a lot of times if you're writing it depends on your application. It depends how often you're going to run that query. And the answer is if you run a lot, you definitely want that. You want the ability to have that query pre-compiled. So like I said, you don't have to do this calculation every time. Then you don't have to do it once when the application first starts. So there's some companies that will have a little job that runs when the application first starts that compiles up all the queries and gets them in memory, at least the frequently used ones, so that when they get hit over and over again. Now, I use live query a lot, and live queries are kind of dynamic queries that tell you anytime the data changes. So I don't use compiled queries as much because of the fact I'm a subscriber of live queries instead, and that live query works a little bit different. But compiled queries are pretty cool. So you can see here, it did compile our query down, and it compiled it down to this. And so FL stands for fleece. And so we have a fleece result of a fleece value, and we're giving it inside of the fleece document itself. These are all the things we're looking for. And then we're saying we're getting it from this particular place. So you can see key V stands for key value. So we say we're going to the key value in fleece for documents or warehouses, locations. It's our scope and collection. And we're bringing that back as a data set called location. So that's, you've just got schooled on how to read and explain information from Codespace Lite. This is super helpful. If you have an error, it's going to come up in here, right? If there's something wrong with your query, it's going to come up here. If you have to contact support and you're saying, hey, my query runs slow, they're going to ask you for this explain plan. They're going to say, hey, can you send us the explain? Because if you're using an index, it'll also be in here. And so right now I don't have an index set up for this because it's just there's no where clause, right? So if there's no where clause, if I'm not asking for it to dump certain information out, like when a city's a certain value or a state's a certain value, well, then I don't need an index. So because of that, we don't see an index right now. So that's all cool. This is exactly how it should be. And we're going to go through, this is where we're going to print it out to the console. So you can see here, here's our printout statement. One second, I got a cough again. All right. Scan locations. 2. This is a scoring system, and the scan says that it's a table scan. It's a table scan because there is no index on it, and that's perfectly fine because there's no where clause. So I'm okay with living with that table scan. You can see here from collection. Here's our collection name. Here's our scope name. This is the stuff that we're looking for. This is the explain, giving us some more information that when we print it out to the screen. So this is very cool stuff to have, to tell you the truth. And this will help you if you're trying to debug what's going on with your queries. So let's see what happens when we execute this and see if it goes through. So our result should be an object. We can see here we have the implementation of a query result, and we have 13 elements only though, not 18, 13. That's interesting. Why do we only have 13? Is it because some of the documents I have are not warehouses? Maybe. That looks like a warehouse. That looks like a warehouse. I'm looking off screen at my data to see why it says 13, but I thought I said counted 18. The count should be the same. Why are we only in 13 back? Well, let's find out. Let's see if our decoder works. That worked. Okay, let's just go through and get back to our test then. So we should get back because our question was whether or not the first document would be the document we think it is. So here is our first document. It is the Santa Clara warehouse, exactly like I thought it would be, because it is getting them out in order that we put it in because we didn't put anything in the order by or in our where clause. So because we don't have an order, it's just pulling up an order that they came into the fleece and coded them. So this actually technically speaking would work, but chat, you're right. It's not necessarily a good idea to hard code in the first value from the array. You'll see here, that's weird. That's interesting. 18 values. So it is bringing back all the values. But when I looked at the results, it said 13. Maybe it wasn't fully done compiling the execution plan yet? That's a little curious. But our test should pass now. I'm going to click play here, and our test does pass. But it's a bad test. Jonas, as always, is right on this, folks. We shouldn't probably take the first record out and just make the assumption, because what happens if somebody comes back and changes this and puts a where clause in, right? Or an order by clause. Now we can't guarantee that data is going to be the same. So this is hard coded to get a single record back to test its value, but we don't even know if that's really the right record. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we solve that problem by getting the actual record we want. Okay. First where we could say, what is it? $0 dot warehouse. Oh, look at this. Our CoPilot here is helping us out here. What does CoPilot say? Where $0. That is exactly what I wanted. Look at you, Mr. CoPilot, coming in to help me here. We got a predicate here where we're going to go through and search where. And why is it man now? Let's see here. First, we'll just give me the where. The where is returning on. Oh, what am I doing wrong here? Can't convert bool to warehouse throws bool. Oh, you're right. I'm missing the query clause for to make this a closure. Thank you. And so now document should. Now the problem is that document could be nullable, right? And I think if I look at it, that's going to be the problem. I think it's mad because it needs this, because we can't guarantee that the first will come back. If I remember right, that's the problem with that syntax, and that does seem to be the problem. Thank you for reminding me to make it a closure. Chat, Jonas, you're awesome as always. All right, let's see here. That should get us a better testing. Now, our arrange is a problem here, because as we were kind of talking about earlier, the real problem is that this is a lot of setup, and the problem is that we're doing it over and over and over again, almost the same thing. There's a couple of these where it won't be the same, because in a couple of these I have 2 databases instead of 1, and this will get into where we get into replication. So I know that's going to happen because I've written this before for Kotlin. So we got to think about this for a little bit of how we want to do this. And he's probably right. Probably one of the best things to do is to have a method that basically for warehouses, we could get away with a helper method that returns the database manager and does all this work. And it turns out we've already kind of made ourselves a base class that we could do that in. So let's do this. Let's go through and say, let's make a new function. We're going to call this arrange DB manager, and we're going to return a don't want to bubble up errors. No, let's do that to start out with. Async, it's got to be for this. Get my languages screwed up of where to put async. All right, let's see here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this code out here. Okay. Let's copy it to start out with. Put in our base. And now what we should be able to do is say return DB manager. Okay. That should get us our arrange set up, right? And so now what we should be able to do is just delete all this. Oop. We want to keep our mark in, but we're going to say let DB manager equal self dot arrange DB manager. And that cuts all that code down. And then we can just basically copy this. Let's see here. Oh, we had to wait it. All right. We can copy this one line of code. And we can go into our other tests and do the same thing here. And that will clean that up. And then we can do it also down here. We're getting rid of all this boilerplate code, making that better. All right, so that would clean up that code. Let's see here. Now our tests are a lot smaller. In fact, this whole file is less than 73 lines for a bunch of tests. That's pretty badass cool. Let's run all of our tests and make sure that we didn't break anything to start out with, right? So we'll just run all of our tests here in this and make sure that our tests continue to work. We got all green, folks. Green is good. Well, for colorblind people, green is probably not, you shouldn't rely on the color green. But most people that are colorblind, they can still see some shade of green, but check marks are good. Let's just put it that way. All right. That looks pretty good. We got our next query done. So we've got, let's see here, get query. This is our query index that's going to get by city and or state. Folks, are you wrapped yourself up with the idea of building even more complicated query? Because that's what we're going to get ourselves into next, I think. We've got a get, and this works pretty well, but we need to change this up. In fact, I'm pretty sure, let me check the Kotlin code real quick here. We could cheat because I have the Kotlin code open and I've already written this once in Kotlin. That's right. Okay. I had to think about it for a second. Why do I use two different queries? That's right. On the screen for warehouses, if you don't search for any warehouse, I use the get call. And then the second that you want to search for one by, for example, location, like a city or state, then I call the more specific query. And that kind of comes back that way. The bonkers thing is that really these are almost the same exact function when it comes down to it. The only thing that's different is the query. The results actually are absolutely the same. And I know that cries for a helper method, right? Why can't we just simply take the results back and say, hey, if we know they're going to be the same results, why don't we refactor this out to basically just get ourselves an array of warehouses that comes back? We should probably do that so that we can save even less code here. So let's see here. I know that the results are going to come back right here. So let's send the query in, and we'll make a function that says func get query, get warehouse query results. And this will be async. We're going to pass in a query, which is of type query. And wait, is that a query that we have? There's two types of queries. Let me get this Swift documentation open. Okay, it is query. Okay, make sure. There's a query builder also. And so my fear was real quickly, I was like, wait, did I have the syntax right? One second here. Let's see here. So we need to return back. We're going to say async. We're going to return back a array of warehouses. And then we're going to, in our function here, we could basically say, there's a try here. So we're going to need to do a do. So we got this do here. So let's go and say do. Well, first, we're going to do some grocery shopping here. I say grocery shopping usually when I borrow some code from somewhere, too. And we're going to, our catch for right now will just work fine for this error. So let's grab our catch here. I'm using VI key binding. So if you're wondering why really weird characters are coming up when I clack my keys, that's why. And we're going to cut this out right here. And that says DB query, but we'll just change that to query. And that should work there. And we can then say return warehouses. And now with that we have this, we can just basically say our query is right here. And now we can just say return get warehouses from query result. And then we can pass our query of type DB query. We refactored that out on purpose. Oh, we need to wait. Oh no, we didn't even need to do that. Really? We could just, well, oh, I'm interested on some opinions, chat. All right. I've had this debate for years with various programmers of various languages. This, if you look at, this is efficient. We're dumping out of the do statement and returning before we finish the do statement, okay? Now, some people would call this taboo. This is, some people say this code's bad. Some people would say that this is like recursion, and as soon as you got your result, you should dump out. It's debatable because the theory would be, do I just, so let me explain the two options here we have. And I'm interested to get people's feedback on what they think is better. Is it that we just say warehouse equal this, and then we use the return down here that catches all? Or do we dump out and say, look, you know what? We don't care. We're getting out of this, man. We're getting out of this gig as soon as possible. Return here. Both of those syntaxes work. Don't get me wrong. They're both correct. The theory would be that I've heard a debate on this. And actually, the argument I had that was probably the most strongest argument was with VB developers years ago. This is back when VB.net was really big. They explained that this is actually the wrong syntax. And I was in I was at a university at a .NET user group, and we were talking about the conversion from VB to VB.net. And the conversation goes, I had some code and I did this syntax, and they're like, that is a go-to statement. That's terrible code. I was like, what? It's like, you dump out. I'm like, yeah, I dump out. I do it all the time. If you do a recursive function, you dump out the minute you get the answer. Otherwise, the recursion has the theory that, you know, if you have a recursive function, you don't dump out as soon as you get the answer. Your recursion could never stop, right? And so if you get used to writing in that kind of mindset, you get used to trying to get out of anything that you can. You know, you may be a break person that likes to use the break keyword, like in languages like C# to get out of a loop as soon as you know that you're done, versus completing it. His argument, the guy's name was Peter, by the way. I'm not going to say his last name, but Peter's argument was that you should never do this. Instead, you should get the value back and then return at the end. And that way it guarantees you don't have any go-tos. And his theory was, it was for code maintenance, that there may be in the future somebody to add some business logic down here, or the code needs to change a little bit. And by dumping out early like this, you have the possibility of having like nested business logic that's broken up. So his idea was that this was terrible code. Instead, you should just say warehouses equals this. So chat, I'm kind of curious, does anybody have any opinions? What do they think is better? Do you think the this line right here is good, where we just do the return, we get the warehouses back? Or do you basically just dump back out the minute you're done with it, right? I think for the sake of, okay, so we disagree with the premature premature optimization. You know, it just comes down to some of it is like, how are you what is your code style? Like, as a developer, if you read somebody's code, if you've worked with them long enough, you know whose code it is, because they have like certain styles that they've come through in their career that they write, right? You've worked long enough, you know all the different code styles to have conversation with people about. And I say, this is my personal opinion, the best code bases I've read is where you can't tell which developer wrote it, where everybody uses the same code style, everyone's using a similar type of syntax, you all have the same way of doing things, and by doing that, the code's easier to read because, once again, you can't tell who wrote it. That's usually means that the code's pretty easy to read, and you bring new people in, they're not learning 5 different ways of doing something. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, no matter what you do, you should probably consistently do it the same way. One of the biggest ways that you're probably going to cause defects is not. Not only that, you're already hiding the error in your code flow, and that is it in itself a mistake in my book. Yes, because I'm just printing out the error, right? You know, instead of throwing the error back or bubbling it back up, or doing something with it, I just basically eat the error itself. And I could turn this into an envelope where I bring the error back and you can at least do something with it based on that. That's probably the most common pattern I've seen is where you take the error, you wrap it up, you make a data access object, and you envelope the error inside of that along with the data, and then somebody checks it, and then if the error is set, then you can do that. There's nothing wrong with throwing the error, nothing wrong at all with rethrowing it. The bubbling up because the user catches it or it falls back to 0 themselves. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong. So the conversation piece is about, do you just basically say throw error here, right? Just like that, right? You get the print so you can get out and debug. Error is not handled because the closing function is not clear throws. Oh, wait, this isn't? Oh, yeah, that's why, because this Git doesn't. We would do it like this. And if we did it like this, now we could say like that. We could absolutely do it that way. Now, this is your kind of like you get your cake and eat it. Now, one person would argue that, oh, wait, I don't have it. Oh. That's better. All right. Got to get my syntax right. You know that the worst thing is that if we go over to Kotlin land and we take a look at this, where the heck's Kotlin? Its syntax is just so different. You do your async stuff on the other side of the function. So it's so different. It's so close to being the same. And instead of the word func, it's fun. And so it's like literally syntax is so, I can tell you that my number one frustration as a developer is literally this. It's like literally trying to remember where to put keywords. It's not like I don't know what async is and stuff, but remembering like, oh, Swift, that right, I have to put it in this order. And Kotlin over here, I have to put it in this order. C#, I have to write it like this. It's, if you have to support multiple languages, I can tell you that is going to be probably what you spend most of your time doing, unless you're doing it every language every day, which I think that's kind of impossible. You end up just running into these things where you have your syntax wrong all the time. Now, I would even argue that this is probably not necessarily the best way to do it either, to tell you the truth. I'd make the argument that we have a base class that we probably could make for all repositories that deals with errors. And I've done that before, where you have like a factory, you have something that basically is the error manager. You send your errors over there and it handles like logging it to a file. Or whatever your logging solution is. Maybe you write stuff to a buffer, then you write it to a cloud every now and then, like to a cloud provider, something like that. Usually in bigger applications, I would have a logging solution in place. And anytime these kind of errors come up, we would log those and send those out to the cloud. The one I've used in the past, to tell you the truth, since we're having this conversation about logging, I get accused of being this all the time, being a Microsoft fanboy, but there's something called App Center that Microsoft has. And most people don't know App Center is free to use for most of its features. And so I can just sign in as my personal. Hopefully it is my personal, not my work account, because we do have stuff set up in work. But you can see here that I can set this up. And one of the things that it gives you the ability to do is diagnostic and analytics. What you could do with this is you could literally integrate App Center into your code. It costs you nothing. And then it'll automatically send the logs of your code to App Center. And you just basically use this crashes track errors. And you could basically write exceptions to cloud. And so anytime you have errors, you would get them in this report that you get back from you logging into App Center. And also the cool thing is with iOS, it sends the symbols up. And so you would automatically get the symbols. Now you have to upload the DSYM file, the symbols dictionary, so that you could desymbolize the crash and find out what really happened, right, in your stack trace. But this is something that's free, believe it or not. Now, you're saying, well, how does Microsoft make money on this then? Because there's no freaking way that Microsoft's going to give something away for free. So they offer something called, I actually can show you this. I've done talks on this before, so I know that it'd be okay to show you the work stuff that I've done here. Give me a second here. Let me take this off screen real quick. Let me sign into work, and I'll show you some probably cooler stuff. Let's see here. Let me see if I can remember how to sign in for work. Because I've done some quite a bit of mobile automation at work. I need an authenticator. 1 second here. Let me impromptu showing off of something here. Let me get my authenticator app open so I can get some code. Make sure you guys aren't seeing it on the screen. Let's see here. How to nope, that's the code. All right. Yes. Aha. Here we go. Oh boy. So here's a much more complicated setup here of a lot of different mobile apps, as you can see here, running and getting logs information. But what it offers, which is super badass cool. Let me go into the Android version. This is probably the better thing I could show you. Let me show you the Xamarin. I want to show you the standalone. Let's go through it in tests. And let's see here. Why don't we have... Now that's interesting. The devices are here. So what you can do in App Center is you can run on physical hardware in the cloud. You set up your tests. Oh, I do know why, because we updated recently and App Center broke. That's why there's no test for this month. I keep forgetting about that. It's on my list of things to fix. Sentry is a competitor. They're also really nice. There's another one. What the heck is it called? I probably have it in my bookmarks. What the hell did we use at EY? What was it called? We didn't use, we used App Center towards the end, but we used another one. They're the ones with the robot arm. What the hell was their name? Oh, it's not them. Who was it? Boy, I'm gonna get this wrong. It wasn't Sauce Labs either. But they basically had Perfecto. There it is, Perfecto. These guys, these are the Cadillac. If you want to go with some automated testing in the cloud, let me tell you, and if you got a large bankroll, this is the best platform I've ever seen in my life. They literally, for the right amount of money, will have a robotic arm that you could program to physically touch parts of the screen for you. And you could write code against their SDK to have all kinds of crazy things happen with a robotic arm. Literally, that goes in and touches the screen. I can't make this up. Well, I could make it up, but I'm not making that up. That is something real. I used Perfecto in 2016 until 2018. I want to say is when we used them. These guys are ridiculously cool. Let me tell you, they have some really cool stuff. However, they're expensive as hell. And so eventually, my former boss, where the place I used to work at, said, hey, the Perfecto bill is pretty big. We need to move to a cheaper solution. And we went over to App Center, and it worked pretty great. So you can see here, I've got an Android 12 and 7.1 device, and I can run tests against this, and it will actually run my UI tests against a physical device. All the logs will come back, and it will show me the results. Now, the other thing that App Center does is you can distribute your app if you're doing enterprise development. You literally can say, here's all my builds, and you can go grab a build, and on Android, you can just grab the APK and install it on the phone. And iOS, it's a little bit more trickier to distribute out, but they do support it. Not very popular in the native platforms for some reason, but in the .NET world, App Center is like, there's a lot of people I know on Twitter that use App Center. A lot of people will be very mad if it goes away because they use it for the analytics and for the symbolization, putting all that stuff in the cloud. So in summary, what I'm getting at is most of the time, if I was doing this and it wasn't for a personal project, I would have an error manager that runs, and all these catches would go to my error manager, and my error manager would wrap these up and send these out to some place like App Center. And then I would look at my daily, we'd have somebody in QA looking at those logs, figuring out what's going on. They'd be maybe putting bugs in the backlog for us to look at to try to figure out what's going on. And that's the real answer of how we should be doing this. But just throwing the errors is not necessarily a bad thing. I do like to print them out though, because that way we can see what's going on when we're diagnosing it. So I think for right now, we're just going to do this. And I hate cut and paste, but it's just a simple solution to this. It's not a huge amount of functions we're talking about here. And we just need to make sure we have the throws in here also. In our query here. And so now that we're doing that, we should also do it down here too, shouldn't we? If we're going to be a good citizen, let's be a good citizen everywhere, right? Let's be consistent. That's what I was talking about earlier. Consistency is the ticket. And so now we're not bubbling. We're not eating our errors. We're kind of this really isn't bubbling up. This is more just rethrowing. Bubbling up to me is where you just don't do the try catch in the first place. You just let the error happen, and it just the next person up's job is to handle it then. But in Swift, it's very a lot of times you are required to do the try in order to call some things. Like in C#, try catch is optional on just about everything, and so you decide where you want to do your try catch. You don't have to do it in your repository. You could do it like in your view model, for example, and catch it there instead. So you're just letting something else handle the particular error. The real problem is the call stack. It's called. If you really want to get your error and understand what's going on, you have to be able to get the stack trace for it, so you can see the call stack to see like where did it break. And if you don't catch the error in the right spot, you may not get the right call stack. And if you don't get the right call stack, well, then figuring out why that thing blew up or where the problem is, that's a nightmare. So when you are dealing with these errors and stuff, if you're new to really development at all, that's something you have to keep in mind, as you want to get your errors close to when it happened as possible so that you can get the proper stack trace from it, so that you're minimizing the amount of time it spends you looking at where exactly in the haystack of code does this particular error happen in. Hydrate myself again here real quick. This has been a good stream so far. I know that we haven't got a lot of code done, but we've talked about a lot of things, and I think that's half the battle here. So let's see in here. It throws. Oh, we need to do a try here now. Try must proceed and await. Oh, so I've got the syntax backwards. Okay, so that will fix that, and then also we need to do that in. Now that we have our setup here, we could also do that. Let's see here. Get async try, get warehouse results. So we could do it down here. Where's our other one? That's our count. Oh, we haven't run our other one yet. That's what's going on here. What did we could say here? Oh, my protocol has, the signature has changed on my methods, and I haven't updated my protocol yet. Let's go back and fix our protocol. So you can see here, we need to say, wait, but that was just for count. Why is it, wait, I didn't change count. Let's take a look what's going on here. Repository. Let's bring this in to another window. All right, there we go. Now let's go to warehouse repository, see what counts is mad about. Did I change count? I did change count. I changed count to throws. And now I need to get the signature for get also. That should make it happy. That did make it happy. Okay. Let's get this in our protocol also. And then we're also going to do func get by city state. And we're going to take in a city of string and a state of string. States. Both these are going to be, we'll make both of them optional, but technically speaking, one of the others should be set. We'll have to write some code that does that, that checks for that. Async throws, and we're going to return a collection of warehouses again. So now we have 3 functions. This almost matches exactly what I have in Kotlin now. So that should be our protocol. Now our protocol is, it's going to be merely mad over here because we didn't implement that. So let's kind of go up here and start our implementation of this. And I think that's where this might be a good place to end the stream. Get by, what was it, by city state? I think that's a good Object-C name. Get by city state, and you have your city and state, right? In Object-C, the goal was you had to write your function or method names in a way that would read nice. And you'd get yelled at if you didn't do that by other developers. Let's see here. So now we have I think a decent method signature. We can close this one out because we don't need this other window. Let's see what it says to do here. We may or may not take this. We'll see what it's saying here. So this is our GitHub CoPilot that has just basically wrote some code for us. Let's see what it says to do here. It's almost right. this isn't bad. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of excited because this isn't bad. This literally wrote, it knows the previous method I wrote down here, get, right? It knows the difference now, and it knows SQL enough to say, I'm pretty close. The problem is that either one of these could be optional. So, and then the problem is we have to have at least one of these have a value in it. That's going to be the trick. And that's how the UI works, is that you could either search by city or state, or you could search by neither of them, which means we would just return the existing function. So I hate to say this, but really the user experience in this is that we have to check each one of those individually to see whether or not they're nil or not. And if both of them are nil, so the if, let, city, and state, the problem is that if both of these don't have a value in them, we're kind of screwed. I'm trying to think about this for a second. We could just pass an empty string to both these from the Swift UI to guarantee that they're not nil. And that probably would get away with the using both these at the same time. Chat, what do you think about that? In Android, what did I do in Android? I'm pretty sure I checked each one of these individually in Android. Let me see what I did in Android. Okay, so in Android, if you use search, city is required and state is not. That is the business logic that was given to me as the rules to this app. So you know what? We're going to say that. We're going to say that city is always required. So we're going to say... Oh, hey, Nick. Welcome to the stream, man. You've been lurking. I haven't seen you, man. How you doing, bud? I figure you might be at the gym right now, actually. How's your day going, Nick? How is sunny? Let's see. I think you're now in the Bay Area, right? You're no longer in San Diego, right? How is sunny California? Or maybe not sunny California. So we know that city is going to always be there. So we're going to say our query is going to be plus equal to where city equals this. And so we're going to steal this code right here. And we're going to pop this in over here instead. We're going to say that city is always required. And then we're going to say state. If state is set, now we could put in the string concatenation and set state to state. But honestly, CoPilot did a pretty good job. I mean, this is pretty close to what I was going to write. And I copied this line, forgot to grab the closing quote there, so that's why it's mad there. So if we look at this, let's read this now. Our query is going to say from. Now, one thing that's going to kill you in this is making sure you have the space right here. Because if you don't have the space and you're concatenating this, skip Jim today. Super sunny here in Northern California near Napa. Wow, Napa Valley. Okay, good for you. So is that by Paloma? Is that... Wait, is it Paloma is north? I think that's about an hour and a half outside of San Francisco, or hour. Paloma, is that the name of it? I think that's the town. I can't remember. I haven't thought about California. Actually, Couchbase is out of... we're out of the Bay Area. That's our home office. So I should know more about San Francisco than I know. Funny side story, I guess, is that I almost lived in California for a while. My older brother Joe was in the Marines, and so I lived in San Diego for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. And San Diego was off Cap Pendleton because he was a Marine, and it was pretty great to study there. And then in 2003, I saved up a bunch of money, and I was going to quit my job at the time and go move to San Francisco to become a coder at a startup. And the short story, I won't get into the long story, but the short story is I bought a brand new Mustang car that I had saved up a bunch of money for. And I hit a deer the day I bought it and totaled the car. And the insurance company would not give me money for my car for months. And so I bought the car and I was going to drive across the country to San Francisco. In fact, I even had an apartment, the whole 9 yards, in Palo Alto. And I had to get my deposit back on my apartment because took me months to get my car money from the insurance company. And in the meantime, my buddy, one of my best friends, Jonas Clark, who I used to work at a hospital with, he convinced me to go work at the hospital he worked at. He's like, dude, don't move to California. Come work at the hospital I work at. We need developers. We're working on this Java system and JBoss, and it was a medical record system. And so I got hired at that hospital. and I went to the hospital instead. It took a lot of convincing, but we used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering together back in the early 2000s, and over some beers and Magic the Gathering, he finally convinced me that I should go into healthcare. So I was in healthcare for about 5 years. I was a developer writing some Java JBoss stuff. I did some .NET, and then I left that hospital and then went back a couple years later. It was the manager of the development team, and so that was my first big manager job outside of for just pure developers. I had managed other people in the past, but they were like I had some people that weren't they're IT workers. They weren't necessarily all developers, but when I went back to the hospital, I was a pure software developer, and I had 2 DBAs, and I take that back. We had 12 developers, 2 DBAs, and 3 server guys, and I had 1 system analyst that was like a business analyst on my team. And that was my team I worked at when I was at the hospital. We were all kinds of cool. That's where I started mobile, actually, was at that hospital. So, fun fact. So let's see here. CoPilot's really doing my job for me here, folks. Here, it kind of went through and did my query for me here. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember the sample data all that well, so I don't remember how many states, how many warehouses are in what. I'm pretty sure there's only 1 warehouse in San Mateo, though, and so I think we can write our test against that. Because we need to write a test against this function to guarantee it works. We need to write 2 tests. We need to write a test that just tests with city, and then we want to also test with city and state, right? So, well, I take that back. We could say, this is wrong. It's wrong because they don't have to type in the full city name. That's right. And I remember this now. I struggled with this for quite a while because the like syntax. That's right. Oh. Yeah. Okay, hey, we're gonna get some advanced cross-based stuff here before the stream ends. We can't use equal. We have to say like here. But I learned. I was talking earlier about a friend of mine. No, actually, it wasn't Jim that told me this. It wasn't Jim. I was thinking it was Jim, but now I think about it, Jim is not the person that told me about this. Jim just messaged me. It wasn't Jim. Who told me this? One of the mobile guys on the SDK team explained to me, I spent probably a couple hours really upset one day because I could not get likes working. This was right when Couchbase Lite 3 shipped, and I was getting really kind of cranky about this. Blake told me. It was Blake. I was like, Blake, dude, likes don't work in Kotlin, man. It's like broke. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, they're broke. And so he's like, man, let's go look at the SDK code. So we're going to look at the SDK code. And it turns out what I didn't know is that the like statement requires, and I have to remember the syntax for SQL++. Let me call up something that has SQL++ and Kotlin in it. Do I do any searches in projects? Nope. Projects are query builder. It'd be audits. Those are pure equals. I'm looking at my Kotlin code to see if I can, outside of warehouse, if I can explain this. All right, so it looks like warehouse is the only thing that has this. The problem is that I felt that should work in Query Builder, but in Query Builder that did not work, and I was like cranky about it. To tell you the truth, I was like, "Wait, why doesn't that work?" And the answer in Query Builder is you have to wrap. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make this so it fit in the stream. Let me make this bigger and I'll show you what ended up happening. Oh, why isn't the plus and minus working here? Oop, I'm in the wrong spot. That's why. Nope. Where is project? Get back here. And that's kind of interesting. It's not doing my zoom in for me. Huh. Zoom IDE is what? What? Shift? Apple. That's all I was doing. That's not working. It's switching tabs when I do that. Huh. That's weird. I don't know why it's been a while since I've used Android Studio here, but it's the normal zoom functionality using the mouse wheel does not work for me. This syntax is here though. What I found out was that you have to, in the expression, you have to concatenate the string with these as a string separately outside of the statement. And it was super weird. It was not something that was in the docs at all, and something that burned me quite a while. So I was pretty cranky about it. So I think what ends up happening is, now what I can't remember is that's query builder, but I think what ends up happening is this is what it turns out to be. I think it's backwards. I think it's like this. We can test this though real quick, because I think my gut feeling was it should be part of the string. That's how most languages handle it, but it turns out it wasn't. It needed to be outside of it, if I remember right. We'll find out here real quick here, right? So we'll do this. Let's go look at VS Code again real quick here. We're going to cheat, and then we'll write a test against this, and then I think we'll call that a stream day, and we'll kind of summarize what's going on here. So let's go to our city, Santa Clara. That's where Couchbase's main office is, so that makes sense that we would have Santa Clara in there. So all we have to do is say SA, though. We don't need the rest of it. We just need that. And if we to lower it, we can just don't even care if they type in our lowercase. If we lowercase both these, we'd have to say, what's the to lower function in SQL? What's the to lower in? There's a function for this. I don't have it in my code. Let me look it up real quick here in the docs. Let's see here. Where is my non-event inquiry class? Here we are. All right. So let's go do what a smart developer does, is go read the docs real quick here. Let's go here. Let's go to SQL queries, and we want to go SQL for mobile. And then what we're looking for is functions. So we want string functions, and we want lower. It's just lower. Okay. Just want to make sure that I wasn't going to get myself burnt, but that makes sense. So we would say here, lower. We're comparing apples to apples then, right? By doing this, we get rid of our lowercase, uppercase kind of problem where the person types in upper, but in the database, it's in upper and lower. And like Santa Clara, where the S is capitalized and the C is capitalized. On a mobile phone, they may forget to capitalize the C in Clara, right? So we don't want them to get their, not get the results back because they did that. So we need to write two tests to guarantee that this query works right. We need to write one that basically sends a city in. Well, actually, we should have three. We should also test that city should have something in it. We really should be doing this. This is a really good point. If query, or if city is not, city is empty. Else. Right, because we have to guarantee that they didn't, city should have something in it. But if they don't have anything in city, then we don't want the where clause in, because that's going to break the query, right? And so the person may put a space in and hit the send, and we could try to trim that out in SwiftUI in the UI start, but this I think just is going to guarantee that we don't run into that edge case there. And we could actually probably put, why is this banned now? What protocol stub? Wait, what? Get city, get by city state. What did I spell wrong? Oh, in the protocol, I say that it's optional, but it's not optional. So I need to fix the protocol definition where I say city is required. Because this matches the Kotlin code, and I do want this to match the Kotlin code I wrote. That way when people are showing it off, they don't have to say, well, wait, why is Swift different than Kotlin? That should fix it. Okay. Technically speaking, we can save ourselves a bunch of time here. I'm going to take this out. I'm gonna cheat code this once again. No, I can't do it that way because no, that is the right way to do it. I was gonna try to cheat code, but I keep forgetting the state could be set and the city could not be. Yeah, that's gonna just cause a problem with the business logic. Now I think about it. All right, we're gonna keep it like this. This is what I was gonna do. I was gonna say, hey, if city's empty, just call the get function here. Just don't even like right up here at the very top. If city and state are empty, basically, you know, for whatever reason, if these are both empty, then really we already have the code down here that does it, right? We only should be really running this if the city and state are set to something. And that just gets us out of accidentally have a defect where for whatever reason somebody called this and, you know, there's a space, like I said, in city and stuff. But I think that this is probably the easier way to do this. We also should trim city for spaces. Do I do that in... did I have that problem in Kotlin? I'm trying to think here. Let me look in Kotlin and see if I trimmed it or not. So what trim does is if they put a space in the beginning or the end of it, it just trims out those spaces, right? And that's something that sometimes people can do when they're on a mobile phone when they're entering data. That can be kind of a killer to your productivity when you're trying to figure out why this doesn't work. So what you could do is also say is trim. Oh, so this is trimming. Is there not just a regular good old trim? Come on, Swift, you have a trim, right? Every language has got a trim. L trim, and usually most languages have like a L trim and a R trim for right and left trim. What did I do? Oh, I accidentally deleted the parenthesis here. L trim? Nope. All it has is trimming. Well, all right. Let's see if we can get away with not trimming right now. We're running close to me having to get off this stream. Otherwise, my wife's going to get upset. Let's write some tests for this, and I think we'll call it a day, and maybe we'll come back if we need to and figure out the trim thing. So let's go here. We've got our query here, test. Oh, this is failing now because the get, we put a try in front of it because we're throwing stuff now. And we're probably going to have the same problem down here. Oh, no, that checks indexing. So, and I did this in the wrong order. Okay. All right. Here we go. We're getting in there. Let's see here. Oh, here's the other one I was looking for. So, all right. We're going to put it right below our count here, I guess. We'll put it above, I guess. Doesn't really matter the order. Func test warehouse get by city. Async throws. And so now we can literally borrow this because we have our helper function that we wrote that basically goes through and does it our range for us. And then we'll get our mark for our act. And let's see here. We need to get a pointer to the warehouse repository. And then what we need to do is say, let documents equal results. Repository dot get by city state, and we're going to say city is going to be SA and state's going to be nil. And what we should be able to do is test to make sure that we should have at least one document back. What's going on here? Why is it, man? Oh, JavaScript error. And stop using single quotes for strings. Try. All right, that'll fix that. Then we need to go through and do our assert, right? So let's just grab some assert statements here. Now cleanup should be. Is it because we throw an error? Is that I think this is the reason why. Let's make sure that documents are not null. Let's make sure we don't know the count yet. Documents. And this is copy database actually. Let's start with these two. And why is it add here? Because I typed documents wrong. Ah, there we go. All right, let's put a breakpoint here. Run our code and see what we get back. Failed. We didn't even get that far. The repository's mad at us. Oh, poop. Well, let's go over and find out what our repository's mad about. Let's go ahead and run this now. But that music's a little loud. I'm going to turn that down just a hair. There we go. If the music's too loud, by the way, guys, just in chat, let me know. Let's get a little loud here. I've got to get this new audio set up so that I can have the audio for this stream music different in my headphones than it is going to you guys. So let's see here. We're debugging now. So let's see here. We've got, that's probably not the best place to put a breakpoint. Let's put a breakpoint here. Because we know the query probably works. Or maybe not. Okay, here we go. So, city set to SA, state set to nil, self is our self, warehouses are set to 0. We're on the query line. So city is not empty. Oh shoot. I already see the issue. That's not the issue. I should have kept debugging. Let's go back and debug this again. I thought about it for a second. No, that needs to be like that. That's the business logic. That's right, because we have to make sure city's not empty. And when the app was designed, they had to put at least a city in. They could also put a state if they wanted, but they had to at least put a city in. And so, like I said, I want the Android to work the same way. Or the Android app already works that way. I want this to work the same way because that was the business rules that were given. So let's go through and see here. So we're going to say query is going to equal where city lower. It's going to equal the city lowercase. If let state equals state, that's the problem. Let's run this again. All right, let's see here. We're at city, so query should be added here. State should not, so it should skip over that. Let's take a look at what query equals. Select warehouse, all this stuff where. Oh, let's get a full look at this thing. Where lowercase city like per slash. Those are escape characters. Okay. So, because I wasn't sure if those like statements, it should be in or out of the string. That's probably what's killing us, right? Yeah, so let's see what's going on here. Yeah, look at that. We got an error. So it's saying that the character, when it parsed it out, it didn't like the parse. So I think what that means is that it needs to be like this. It needs to be inside of the actual string itself the SQL string that we're comparing. Oop, I don't want to do that. Stop. No, don't run. Don't run. I want to run the test, not the app. Let's run the test. Let's go ahead and go through. Take a look what our query is now. See if that query. So now the parentheses are inside of it, or the percentages are inside of it, inside of the string itself. So let's see if the parser likes that. It did. Let's look at the explain plan that it came up with. Okay, so it's got the like statement in here. This looks right. From our, let me just look at our compiled down. This is the fleece compiled down. Yeah, it's taking the city field and it's saying it equal to this. So both the fleece compiled down and the raw and then the fleece statements here both look right. So this would be the real fleece statement right here. You can see right here, this FL value. That's the fleece statement. That looks right. And if I look up here, this is my raw compiled, and this also looks right. So this is where we compiled it. I think this is going to be solid for us. I think this fixes it. Let's go ahead and hit the next line. And let's go ahead and get the warehouses back. Okay. Oh, we're here. Yeah. Wait. What just happened? Yeah, let's see how many documents we have. We have 2. That's right. Let's see what our documents are. Santa Clara. That's right. Oop. Sorry, what's our other document? Kansas City, because SA and Kansas. Our query worked. That's the correct answer here. Disable, delete the breakpoint. We'll go ahead and continue this, and our test passes. Cool. Now, we'll write one more test, and then we'll call it a day, because we need to test the cities and states. So let's just grab this whole thing, copy this, and paste it in, and we'll add state to it. So let's see here. Get rid of that. We'll say by city, state, and we'll say that the city is this, and we'll say the state is CA. We'll just say C for California. Reject. I don't need any extra stuff here. This should be equal to 1 document. And this test should pass. Oh, I got a breakpoint here still. Actually, that's a good thing we have it, because we can check now whether or not our state if statement's working here. And there it is. It's adding our state in. That's cool. Let's go ahead and just hit our continue on this. And we failed. Why did we fail? Let's put a breakpoint here. Run the test. The state should be C, and it should be California then. How many documents are there? There's no documents. Wait, what? Where is our VS Code? I am perplexed. Why would that happen? Let's take a look here. What is our state set to? CA, capital CA. And if we were to lower it, we have a like statement. C looks like A. Let's go check that code real quick in the repository. Let's check our state statement. See what's going on with our state here. Repository. Where's our state here? It's up here. And lower state. Equal. Can't be equal. It's going to be like. There's our typo. This is why we write tests, folks. Right? We now know that we found another bug here that I wrote, and we're able to write some tests to prove that our code works. So let's go ahead and run this thing again, and I hope like heck that it works this time. Should. And I think I'll be happy then. Let's see here, documents 1. That's right. We should just have set a clear back for our document. So I forgot the like statement. There it is. Very cool. Let's go ahead and continue on here. That's it, folks. Look at that. Like that. We've got all of our tests working. Golf claps for me. We've got... We should probably write... you know, there's something to be said about this. We should write one to validate that what happens when city and state are set to just blank, right? So just blank and do this and see what happens. And this should return 18 documents because there should be no where clause. And if there's no where clause, it should return all the documents. That's exactly how I expect it to work, and it worked that way. Because when we report our repository here, we check if it's empty, and if it's empty, we basically, if it's not empty, we just simply don't put the where clause in. So at that point in time, it turns it into the exact same thing as the get. So if we do get somebody where they just hit the spacebar a couple times on their iPad and they hit the search button, the application doesn't break and they get all the records back. So we've proven with our tests that, now the data is going to work for warehouses no matter what. That's pretty badass cool. And with that, warehouses, I think, are done. I think we're done with that feature. Let me go take a look here at the Kotlin code real quick and see what else I have. I'm pretty sure that's it. And so I normally would have a backlog for this, and I'd normally be working off like, hey, this is what this project needs to have in it. But since I've already written this multiple times, not only just for Couchbase, but I wrote this when I worked at an accounting firm, and I wrote an inventory app when I worked at a hospital. So on multiple occasions, I've written an inventory like app. So one of the reasons why I write this as my demo apps is that I just know the workflow really well. Get by city state is one. We have get, we have the count, and that is it. Okay, that means warehouses are done, which means we can move on the next stream to other things. And we can say that we've got our test done for warehouse. So this is pretty cool. We're almost done with all of our data. Now I told you earlier, should I go back and fix this? I should probably go back and fix this. So we put a to-do to ourselves here, right? If we remember right, we did our repository actor stuff, right? And so we talked about threading on Tuesday's stream. If you want, you can go watch that. That's been archived on both YouTube and on Twitch. So you can get them on either place if you want to watch that stream. If you want to go and see me talk in great details with chat, with our friend Jonas and chat and a couple other people in chat about Swift and threading. And what we came down to was we're going to use actors for our reads, and for our writes, we're going to use this background worker. But what happened was this is the old school code that I had here. And we should have this now in here. Well, okay, it's not. So we have to fix that. So if we look here, this is what's going on. Let's fix this. So let's go and bring up another window here so we can see the difference between the two of these on our user repository. See if we can fix this. All right. So our warehouse, you can see here, we say it's a repository actor. And so let's do that over here. So we should just be say repository actor and blah, 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 blah. In fact, we don't even need combine anymore. Technically speaking, we're going to then be able to take our task code out here. So let's just take our task code out here. And that means that one of these, we don't need that anymore. And let's see here. So now we don't need self anymore because of the fact that we are these nullable. They're not nullable. All right. So now we just got to clean up some stuff here. So anytime we see DB manager, we just put database manager back in, and then we can get rid of database manager, and then count key. Anytime we see count key, we just delete this one. And we don't need the let statement either. Oh, yes, we do, but it's called database manager because the inventory database can be null. All right. What? Oh, there we go. Wait, what? Oh. Yeah. There we go. Oh boy. Fighting the Swift syntax. All right, that should do it. Let's do this. For the count method, we have to fix the other one. But let's go back and fix our indentation. I've got to set up the what the heck's it called? Wow, I can't believe I'm already drained today at 5 o'clock. Not the parser. I can't believe I can't remember the name of this. The little program that basically re-indents all your code and stuff when you build. Can't think the name of it for whatever reason. But I need to go download that and set that up on this computer. I have not done that yet. There's like pretty fire and stuff like that is what we use in JavaScript. But I need to get a linter. Linter is the word I was looking for. Linter. Thank you, Aaron, for remembering the word linter. I got to get a linter set up on here so that it just automatically lints this stuff and gets this code so it looks right no matter what. So this one's going to be a little bit more crazier because the fact that it has this array that it's using here. So, oh boy. Yeah. Wow. This is going to take some work here. We don't need this. So we need to get rid of one of the brackets here to start out with. Let's see here. Oh, what did I do here? First of all, let me go back. If let email. So we need the if statement still, but we don't need the check on this. So let's go back here. We need to make sure that the data contains the key. If the data contains a key, then we're going to say that email equals data key as string. That's right. Now in here, this is where we're going to get a little bit crazy because we don't need these if statements. Do we even need DB manager to tell you the truth? Why did I get DB manager out? Oh, DB manager is needed for the muting of the no, it's not used. Oh, it's the compact afterward in case we change a blob or not. That's why we need the pointer, the DB manager. Okay. Let's get rid of both these. And then we'll just fix on the fly here. If data contains email, let email equal this. Email's not empty. That'll be the opening of our if statement. Now we're going to say document ID equals get that. That's right. Mutable document. We create a new mutable document. We set the string. Now we don't need a select statement. We can just say this. Let given name equal. Wait, what were we doing here? Let me read through this again. So we were getting the given key out. So we just need to do this. And I think that's the pattern we need to do here, right? So if that given name equals this, then we set it inside the mutable document. So we just have to take the self statement out here and just delete all of these self statements, and the if statement we'll read through. So this will be the same thing here. We're just split done, folks, here. And then we'll rerun our test, make sure our test works. We're making all these changes, saving all those lines of code. That's the reason why we have tests. So we can feel a little cocky about doing this because we know that, hey, worst case scenario, if this breaks, we can just do a restore of the file. And then, oh, so this would be database manager dot collection. It would be user profile collection. Dot save. Oh, shoot. No, that's where I should have kept the nullable for collection. Let's say let collection equal database manager dot user profile collection. And let's fix the spelling of collection there while we're at it. Let's see here. So now if we did that, now we can just go back to using collection here. And that'll work. I got too aggressive there. And then this would be database manager. When we write the SwiftUI code, I'll explain why this happens. Well, we have to compact the database. I do have an explanation there, but I'll go into greater detail of why this is why that it needs to happen like that. What do you mean user ID prefixes right there? What do you mean you can't find it? Oh, because this code's probably broke because I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. Wait, what did I just fix? I just fixed this one down here. This is the get crap. And I can get rid of this if statement bracket here. I gotta fix this now. That's right. If let collection self, we don't need self anymore. We can just say database manager, user profile collection, document ID. But this, I don't think that's nullable. I think that always returns. So let's go back here and fix that. This is a pretty big mess, folks, here I'm trying to fix. So I've got myself into a pickle. If let here, and then we can say, just trying to get myself to the point where I know where things are. Let try document collection, doc equal doc. All right, let's do this. And then what we're going to say here is if let collection equals this, we're going to say comma. And so we're gonna bank this let statement here, or this if statement. We're going to say if doc. If both these things happen, then what we want to do is if let. Well, we don't even care about this statement anymore. We're just going to say that, and then we're going to say. All right, so we're going to get really tricky about this. We just need to get rid of this here. If doc contains that key, then we're going to add that to it. Then we're going to say if and then we're going to do the same thing here. And then we're going to remove, we're basically removing any of the references that basically got self out because we don't need that anymore. But we do need the docs contains because we need to find out whether or not what we sent back has those. And if not, that's cool. That fixes that function. Let's reformat this. Why would it be mad about that? What method is it mad about? Save. So it's mad because save somehow changed. Well, I'll fix that after. So let's go take a look at what save is. Bring this open in another window. Close it here. Let's take a look here. What's going on with save here? There's count. There's get. Where's save? Save is supposed to be a function that takes in data, any async, and bool. This should also throws, right? Let's fix both those. And count also should throw. Why is it bad now? Is it async throws? Async it needs to be first. That's what I'm thinking here. Okay, let's start with that. That fixes that. Let's go back here. Oh, let's fix all three of these, I guess, while we're at it here. So let's go back to count. And then in the catch here, we should say throws here. And the same thing here. We can get rid of this protocol now. So we can see more of the code. And then the same thing should be here. So here. And I think I probably have an extra bracket in here somewhere in the get that I have to fix. But let me fix the throws here. Now let's take a look at get. Get looks pretty good. Now we're back to save. So save is mad because do. If data key contains email, let email. Let email equal data email. Wait, what? We're saving this. Okay, let me think about this for a second. What did I do wrong here? If data keys contains email, then we're going to say we're going to get the email out. Let email. And if the email is not empty, then we're also going to get the collection. Oh, it can't find email key. That's the problem. Where's email key? It's right here. Self. Does this method have the wrong amount of brackets in it? So that's what's going on here. Let's close this. I think that I have a closey problem here. Let me close this function, see what happens. That's what's going on. I have an extra set of brackets there. All right, that fixes that. Boy, refactoring, folks. This is what happens when you refactor. All kinds of craziness can happen, and you start taking things out, and you have to kind of make sure all your brackets, squiggly brackets, all line up and stuff. Make sure that the compiler's happy. Let's see here. I think these are all fixed. This is all fixed. This looks good. We're gonna throw an error here. So it's, oh yeah. So here, this is the last one we have. Get user, cannot find user prefix in scope. Are we missing another bracket here? Nope. No, we have too many brackets. Let's just find out if that's the case here. Let me fold this. That was the issue. Brackets. All right, so now let's select everything, go to editor, and we'll tell it to structure to re-indent the file. And that should fix all the formatting. And I'm just want to go through and reread this real quick. Make sure this all makes sense to me. We're going to print our error just so we can see it, but then we'll throw it. That way the UI can deal with it if something happens. We don't throw it here. Error. We want to be good citizens. We want to make this a real world application, or not real world, but closer. Checked. Let's run our test and see what happens. Wait, did I see a red? Where do I see red? That's okay. I do see red here. Errors not handled and throw. Oh, this probably does not have a throw on the function signature. That's why. Okay. No more red. Let's try running our test. That's where we run test, folks, so that when we change like 50 lines of code, we can go run our test again and sleep at night knowing that I didn't break the code. So let's just run all the user profile tests. All of them have failed. We're not done, folks. Because these are now tries. And this may be, this should be okay. Async, but not marked with a wait. Oh, it's try wait. Expression is async, but not marked with a wait. Insert a wait. Fix. Really? To make a new object, we have to wait it? That doesn't seem right. Okay. If you say so, Swift. Is that because of the actor? Change out? Must be. All right, let's see what else it's been about. Yeah, this is gonna have to be await here. And then the minute we call the repository, we're gonna have to do a try. So it's gonna be a try await and try await here because we can throw. This will be a try await. This will be a try await. This will be a try await. And then this will also be a try. Oh, no, this will be a wait, not a try. And this will be a try. This will be an await. This will be a try. The good news is that at least this is not all that hard to fix. We know what we did. We know the changes we made, so it's not hard to find them and fix them. And then we were going to have a try here for the save. This is saving with a profile picture, I want to say. And then we need to do a try here. This validates not only can we get the record, but we can save it and bring it back. I think this is all the tests. Let's try these now. Save. And then we're going to check this puppy in because this is a lot of changes. A lot of changes. Build succeeds. All green. All green. Finish line at last. Woo! All right. We went and changed all of our repository code, made sure that we throw exceptions. We went through and changed out the user repository to use the actor stuff for reads, which is super cool. We went through warehouse. We got our warehouse, all of our queries working with warehouse. That's pretty cool. We're able to get records back based on searching for certain things. Warehouses, we don't need this count function actually, now I think about it. Oh, I kept this around because this has the syntax, technically speaking, for writing. This is the using the background worker. And so I just kept it around so I wouldn't have to think about like, oh, how did I write that to get the background worker? We should probably move this over to a different repository though, to a project repository. Let's add a new group. Projects. And we'll add a new file. We'll add, we need a couple. We'll add a new Swift file called project repository. And repository, that looks, oop, I already screwed up. That needs to be available in the test suite also. And then let's also add a new file for the database implementation of this. Let's say project database repository. And we'll make sure we add it to the tests. There we go. So now we can just take this code that we know that we want it eventually in the, for writing to data, the projects. And we'll just put this in here for safekeeping. Honestly, there's probably some documentation I can put out there for this. I usually like to do this to tell you the truth. Data sync. Usually. configuration. Let's go over here. Usually there's a little line in here about this. Huh. Using the docs, there used to be, let me check databases. Maybe it's in here. It just tells you it sort of logs on. That's not what I was looking for either. It's almost always under data sync. But let's check the troubleshooting section and see if there's anything in here for it. What they're recommending. Nope. I will find this. I know somewhere in the past we've had some recommendations on this, and I know that Jim actually was talking about this on the Discord, which I guess since I'm probably going to shut down the stream real quick here. Just a reminder that there's some Discord stuff going on here, man. And if you want to read about all this kind of crazy stuff, a couple places you want to go in Discord. One, over in the Couchbase Discord, if you were to go to mobile in general, this conversation actually came up not too long ago. Where is it that Jim was talking about this? This mainly be in Sync Gateway Land over here. We had a lot of conversations going on, but somewhere over here, we were talking about this a little while. Well, I guess I was on vacation. Maybe this was a while ago that we talked about it. But we talked about, somebody was asking this very same thing as like, hey, with multiple databases, how do I do all this stuff? What's in the Kotlin channel? Let's see here. Well, that's to me, but all right. Somewhere in here on the Discord, we had to talk about this quite a while ago about the issues with having multiple databases and threads and stuff like that. It's literally out here in Discord for someone to read if I could find it. That's channel limits. That has to do with how we do syncing. There's a lot of sync stuff in here probably. If you're interested and you're using mobile databases and you have some issues, you always can ping me, obviously, of course. Or you can go over to Discord and check it out. My other favorite place I hang out is Dev Club. Dev Club is pretty great. A lot of cool stuff. If you're into Swift and SwiftUI, you can come over here. People are relatively awesome over here. Not relatively, they are awesome over here. Frequent people updating. You can ask questions. You can get answers. A lot of fun people over here hanging out in Dev Club. So that is another place you can go. Now, of course, if you are a Slack user, I would have to call this out. And I have no affiliation with Paul Arth, and I think that he's one of the best human beings on the planet. But Paul on Slack has got a group called Hacking with Swift. And if you do a search for Hacking with Swift, get on this Discord if you're a SwiftUI developer. Let me tell you, this is by far the most popular SwiftUI community I know out there for both Swift and SwiftUI. Paul is just one of the coolest people in the community. You can see here 2,214 members. A lot of people are here, very popular. It is literally updated almost daily. A lot of people out there answering questions, being cool, being awesome in learning. And Paul does the 100 Days of Swift stuff that usually goes on. I think he's starting a new one for iOS 17, and I think that's going to come out here shortly. If you're into the community of Swift, you got to go look at Hacking with Swift. Paul's both his Slack and his website is downright amazing. Some of the best stuff you're going to get out there. Well, folks, I think we're done with the stream for today. I think we did a pretty good job here. We got a whole entire repository done. We are basically going to work on projects in they'll go very fast because we really almost already wrote all this stuff. We just basically almost a copy of Warehouse. It's just changing a couple things. We've learned everything we need to learn in order to make projects and audit items work. And once those two things are done, we'll switch over to some UI, and we'll get all the UI coded up for this. And then the application will be done, and we'll take a look at doing something different after that. I'm up for suggestions once that's done. We may be looking at Flutter, I think. I did a poll on Twitter, and when I looked at the order of what everyone thought I should work on stream, I think a lot of people are asking for Flutter. And so maybe we take a look at Flutter and compare that to SwiftUI, and we'll build the same application basically in Flutter, and we can then compare the code and see, like, how much better is... I should say how much better. What is different about it, right? And if you're curious, if you're a mobile developer and you only know Swift, or maybe you only know Flutter, now you have something you can compare against and say, okay, well, over here he did it like this, but over here he did it like this, right? Cool things to look at. I already have this application, and I'll probably provide links out to the Android version of this application, although I do have to update it because it does not support scopes and collections yet, and that's a thing on my to-do list. But I want to finish this Swift one first, so. All right, folks, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me over here in chat. On YouTube, thanks for hanging out on YouTube. Let's go see if there's somebody online that we can raid. Who is online right now? None of my coding buddies are online. That's a bummer. I would normally raid somebody, but I don't see anybody out there that we can raid. Well, folks, I got to go because it's 5:45 of my time, and it's just about I have to go cook some supper because it's Thursday night. It's my turn to cook. I think I might do salmon tonight. You guys are all awesome. Thank you, Jonas, for being in chat. Nick, thank you. Matt, if you're still around, thank you, dude. Guns to all of you. TGB Gamer, you guys are all awesome. Just keep being awesome, helping each other out, hanging out, being cool. If you're watching this on video on demand, hang out for the next one, and you'll see some more stuff here as we continue building super cool things with Swift. So you guys all have a great day. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Tomorrow. We're streaming tomorrow.